I'm an obstetrician. 16 years ago, after careful consideration, I advised an older expectant mother to terminate her 3-month-old chimeric supermale fetus. 16 years later, my family of 3 and our pet dog were brutally murdered when the supermale child showed up at our door seeking revenge, slashing wildly with a knife. Just before I died, I overheard a woman say only the online commenters were left. The supermale child vowed to use Douyin comments to track down every netizen who had advised his mother to abort him, locate them via their IP addresses, and kill them all. 01 I've been reborn, so you're the one who convinced my mother not to have me, right? I've been stabbed 8 times in the chest. The rapid, massive blood loss is making my body tremble slightly, and my consciousness is fading. As an obstetrician, I know I'm probably not going to make it. Yes, it's her. She's the one who talked Mom out of having you back then. Mom went through so much. Stop hitting her. I strained to open my eyes and look at the middle-aged woman following behind the serial killer. I couldn't recall her name anymore, but I recognized that kidney-shaped birthmark on her left cheek, so his identity was that chimeric supermale child from back then. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. Eve. The prenatal test shows an elevated Y chromosome count in the sample, suggesting either XYXY mosaicism or another complex karyotype. XYY is also known as supermale syndrome. What does this mean? I glanced at the top of the prenatal report in my hands. Patient name, Lily. What a cruel irony that this name belongs to someone with a pig kidney-shaped birthmark covering half her face. Right now, hearing Lily's timid voice and recalling those final moments before death, I could just strangle her to vent this rage. Simply put, the baby you're carrying is exceptionally gifted and will likely have a stronger constitution than most children. This time, I didn't bother explaining with examples. Instead, I gave an evasive response and turned on my phone's recording function. But Eve, the report indicates increased risks of delayed motor and language development, behavioral abnormalities, potential symptoms like ADHD, autism, anxiety, depression, irritability, and aggression. Possible abnormal phenotypes include hypotonia and motor tics. Lily, are you saying you don't want to keep this baby? Is that right? A sharp slap cracked across Lily's left cheek, the force of it whipping her head to the side. The man who struck her was a tall, dark-complexioned middle-aged man who had just entered. His unnaturally wide-set eyes and the fact that he hit her without a word confirmed beyond doubt that this was the father with the supposed supermale gene. What are you staring at? Never seen a man discipline his wife before. The other pregnant women in the maternity ward, fearing they might get caught in the crossfire, quickly scattered out of the room. In an instant, only the 3 of us remained in the office. Honey, the test results show the baby has an extra Y chromosome. We already have 3 daughters. Maybe we shouldn't keep this one. Smack. Before Lily could finish, another slap landed on her right cheek, creating a perfectly symmetrical pattern with the red mark on her left. Eve, do you think we should keep this child? Lily looked at me with pleading eyes, her frail frame appearing utterly pitiful. Last time around was the same. I pitied her for being stuck with a husband who had clear violent tendencies. She didn't want the child either, yet she didn't dare say it outright, leaving it all to me to play the villain. So I righteously advised them to terminate the pregnancy, only to end up with the entire family meeting a tragic end. This time, she can keep dreaming. Those who invite pity often deserve scorn. What she needs is a real villain to put her through her paces. In fact, among chimeric supermales, there are many exceptionally intelligent geniuses. We must avoid sweeping generalizations, and since the test shows it's a supermale with an extra Y chromosome, it's definitely a boy. The mother might not want to keep the baby, but ultimately, it's your decision whether to proceed with the pregnancy or not. Remembering what Lily had just said about already having 3 daughters, I quickly added a follow-up remark. A son is great. Who cares if it's a supermale or whatever? I'm definitely keeping him. Lily's husband looked so overjoyed after hearing what I said. He seemed ready to burst out cheering right then and there. Watching Lily, her eyes filled with resentment, I quietly turned off my phone's recording function, hit save, uploaded it to the cloud, and let out a long sigh of relief. Done and dusted. By the way, make sure to add me on WeChat so you can reach out with any questions. Also, let's follow each other on Douyin. I regularly post prenatal care videos there that you might find helpful. Of course I need to add them on WeChat. How else would I keep tabs on their family's updates? Lily's husband, who also seems to carry the supermale gene, could be far more useful than he appears. And just before I died, I faintly heard the supermale child say he would use Douyin comments to track down every netizen who had urged his mother to abort him, locate them by their IP addresses, and kill them all. I'm dying to see what kind of video this Lily woman posted, and what exactly are the netizens saying about it. I'm not the only one who got a second chance. Lily's Douyin handle is Birdie, but honestly, she's more like a venomous snake. Yesterday, she posted a photo on Douyin, her pregnancy test results, with the caption, "What should I do?" In just the past day, there have been over 78k comments, and the number of reposts has reached a staggering 360k plus. At Even No Sleep, a soft-hearted mom, a super masculine him, wait till he grows up and wreaks havoc on everyone equally. At Can't Fear Cockroaches, terrifying, a chimera that absorbed its sibling and controls the host, destructive from the womb. At Sheepba, don't even think about trying to win him over with love, it's useless. All he thinks about is how to take you down. At No Madness Spirit, folks from Sichuan province are truly blessed. This isn't your typical supermasculine case, it's a chimeric supermale who consumed his twin in the womb. Overall, everyone unanimously advised her against keeping the child, citing examples of how dangerous such supermasculine individuals become when they grow up. Reading through the netizens' comments, I couldn't agree more. I just wonder how many more people that grown supermale child will have killed before finally being caught after I'm gone. Dad, you need to do something about Mom. She's secretly scrolling through Douyin again. My 12-year-old daughter is going through her voice change phase, and though her voice is a bit hoarse, to me it sounds like heaven. My husband played along with her, his face full of adoration. It was incredibly heartwarming. Even though I've been reborn for several days now, I still can't forget the sight of my husband and daughter lying in pools of blood, and even our daughter's corgi, trying to protect them, was kicked aside and stabbed to death. What did they do wrong? On the day my daughter was killed by Chaoxiong, the company she founded had just secured its second round of funding. My husband was looking at flights for a vacation to Yunnan, saying he wanted us to have a twilight honeymoon trip. Did I make a mistake as a doctor? No. I believe any qualified obstetrician would understand what that report meant, but as a mother and a wife, I was terribly wrong. Due to genetic issues, children with supermale syndrome tend to hold grudges intensely. When they feel they lack the power to dominate you, they'll harbor resentment and seek revenge when the opportunity arises. Isn't that chimeric supermale child holding a grudge? Isn't he just waiting for revenge, this time? I won't give you any chance to hurt us. I just wonder how many more people that grown-up super-violent child killed before getting caught after I'm gone. Eve, so many people are telling me to terminate this pregnancy. What should I do? Great, as if asking online wasn't enough. Lily keeps messaging me on WeChat too. As the mother, whether to keep the baby is entirely your decision. Besides, if I recall correctly, your husband wanted you to have this child, right, after sending that message. I immediately screenshotted the chat and sent it to Lily's husband. Just as I expected, she posted a moment on social media shortly after. Looking back, we've reached middle age. Can two people who've grown tired of each other still grow old together? The picture shows a home that's been smashed to pieces. Ha, that felt good. Consider it a small down payment on what's coming. Over the next while, aside from work, I kept myself busy. Whenever I had time, I sent private messages to users who commented on that Douyin video, asking them to delete their comments, and got called crazy by a lot of people. Then one afternoon, the tone in the comments section took a bizarre turn, veering off in a completely different direction. At 10086, what should you do? You're the mother and you're asking us what to do. Don't tell me you're the one with malicious intentions and don't want this child. Of course. You should have the baby, kids are so adorable. How could you not want him? You're out of your mind. You must have something to hide. You're pregnant and don't want to keep it. You're actually considering an abortion. Doctors have already debunked that myth. There's no real difference between supermale and normal children. If the mother is willing, I'd suggest you keep the baby. Holy crap. I just checked my DMs and realized I'm not the only one who got reincarnated. All those netizens from the comments section back then have been reborn too. I got added to a group chat called Avengers Alliance 96 after a chain vote. We've all agreed to let this chimeric supermale child be born, but we must maintain complete control over his upbringing and development, and that woman Lily, along with her husband who insisted on keeping that wretched child, must face the consequences of their actions, thanks to my deliberate provocation. Lily ended up getting beaten a few more times. Gotta admit, those supermasculine genes are something else. Despite such a hostile environment, the baby's perfectly fine. All the follow-up checkups have been clear. Following the revenge plan, Lily's husband, with everyone's guidance, started following the Douyin accounts of Little White's Battle and Xiao Qian's Family, 03 Mom, I heard you say I was born bad. Honey, can we move back? There are too many bugs here. What if there are snakes? I don't care if it's snakes or their ancestors. You're staying right here and filming. If we don't make money, you'll see what I do to you. The rundown house in the mountains, covered in dust and cobwebs, was the home Lily's husband had chosen for them. Folks, today Lily got another bump on her head from Hugo throwing a rock at her. A bloody head and a bruised Lily have become the staple of every short video episode. The Hugo Family short video account has amassed over 70,000 followers. Signed with an agency, and the live stream donations are just enough to cover their basic living expenses. Over the years, Lily's husband has instinctively cracked the code for viral content, knowing exactly what we folks love to watch the most. Little did he know, the agency he signed with was a shell company set up by our group members specifically for his family. Even the app he uses to post videos is a replica developed by our group's programmers, visible only to us. Chimeric supermale Hugo lived up to expectations. By age 5, he was already hitting his mother and kicking his father, turning the household into a daily circus of chaos and turmoil. Over the years, some group members did consider putting an end to this Truman Show experiment. How could the blood-soaked hatred of our families being wiped out, myself included, ever fade so easily? The searing pain of being stabbed, blow by blow, feels as vivid as if it happened yesterday. It's the power of hatred that drives us to keep watching, to keep going. At first, Lily would message me to vent, but then her husband took her phone away. Eve, please let me stay with you for a few days. I can't go on like this anymore. I want a divorce. What about your husband and children? All 3 of my daughters are married now. And my husband is using the money we worked so hard to earn from making videos to support another woman, my son. He must be heaven's punishment upon us. I saw with my own eyes. He gouged out the rabbit's eyes and skinned our cat alive. That supermale, no, that chimeric supermale, is rotten to the core. Why doesn't he just die? I see, please, try to stay calm. Where are you staying right now? Just across from your hospital, the second alley on the left. There's a small inn there. Eve, you have to help me, or I swear I'll die. Watching the woman before me descend from muttering to full-blown hysteria. A faint smile touched my lips as I ended the call to Lily's husband. I've taken a moment to reflect, and compared to Hugo, the chimeric supermasculine child, Lily, as a normal woman, has a far more malicious mind. Just to avoid getting beaten herself, she completely disregards others' lives, knowing full well her child has violent tendencies and is particularly brutal. She still fans the flames from the sidelines. So the moment I saw her after work, I quietly took out my phone and called her husband. I'm sure it won't be long before I see her in the next episode of the short video series. What's a wife even for? She's there to be beaten. I must have the worst luck in the world to end up married to someone like her. I provide her with food, a roof over her head. All she has to do is take care of the kids and make videos. And she still has the nerve to complain. Lily's husband vented to his live stream audience. Anyone with eyes could see the bruises, black and blue marks all over Lily's face as she stood silently in the background. Dear friends in the live stream, uncles, aunties, brothers, and sisters, did Hugo do something wrong? Why would mom abandon me and run away all by myself? At Mo Songyu, Hugo is the sweetest. If anyone thinks you did something wrong, the problem is definitely with them. At Candy Loving Bear, how could there be such a cruel mother? Hugo is still so little. How could she bear to leave him all alone? At Tumblr Shiha, Hugo clearly loves his mom so much. Why is he being treated this way by her? It's unclear if it's due to the supermale gene, but Hugo is noticeably more mature than kids his age. At this moment, he had his back to the camera and was looking at Lily. Hugo, my dear son, you're my precious baby. The apple of my eye. I was just planning to come get you in a little while, but Mom, I heard you say I'm a born monster and that you wish I were dead. When dogs fight, they both end up with a mouthful of fur. As expected, fighting fire with fire is the best way to go. I hummed a little tune while watching the live stream and tidying up my daughter's clothes. 6 years have passed, and my precious daughter has been admitted to a top-tier double first-class university. The villains who harmed our family are now completely under our control and can't cause even a ripple of trouble. I was thinking, maybe I should discuss with my husband about moving both our jobs and home to Shenzhen. That way, we could take care of our daughter more easily and stay away from these crazy people. A perfect solution, huh? Why is there another phone here? Suddenly, I discovered a phone buried deep in my daughter's wardrobe. This little rascal is being all secretive, keeping things to herself. Wait, what? How come she's in this group too? The phone was on silent, but WeChat group notifications kept popping up one after another. Avengers Alliance Group 99, Avengers Alliance Group 1, Avengers Alliance Group 18. It suddenly dawned on me. If I could be reborn, and other netizens could be reborn, then my tragically deceased daughter and husband must be able to as well. But I clearly joined the group with my personal WeChat account. And I was very active, chatting frequently and enthusiastically participating in group activities like message chains. My WeChat profile picture is also easy to recognize. It's a portrait taken for my daughter's first birthday, so why haven't they ever brought this up all these years? And as for the short videos that Chao Xiong's family has been making, how involved was my daughter, really? Come to think of it, a chill ran down my spine as I reflected on everything that's happened over the years. Since my rebirth, my career and life have followed the exact same path as my memories from before I was reborn. Aside from the Avengers WeChat group and the Super Xiong family's short videos, there's also, today, on a whim, I helped my daughter organize her clothes, something that never happened in my previous life. You're back, go wash your hands, dinner's ready. Hey Mom, did you make my favorite braised fish today? No braised fish today, since you're heading off to college. I followed a tutorial and learned to make braised bullfrog instead. I tried hard to resist the urge to stare at my daughter, only stealing glances at her out of the corner of my eye while pretending to be casual. I noticed my daughter's smile had frozen on her face, her expression turning stiff, like an old radio that seemed to be glitching. Mom, did you make my favorite braised fish today? I saw her blink. And then that familiar smile reappeared on her face as she repeated the same words to me again. What on earth is going on? 04 What on earth are you hiding from me, honey? Have you noticed anything strange, or is there something you forgot to tell me? Nothing strange, no, actually, there is one thing I did forget to mention. After finishing my nightly routine and lying in bed, I stared intently at my husband, my heart tightening. Was he finally going to come clean and tell me? I can barely contain my excitement to tell him that I'm actually reborn too. Haha, I forgot to say, it's another day of loving you, time to sleep now, good night, Macapaka. After saying that, my husband turned over, and within minutes, the familiar sound of snoring filled the room. Deep down, I knew something was off. My mind was racing with countless thoughts, but I just couldn't pinpoint the crucial detail. I quietly lifted my husband's pajama top and found a small burn scar on his lower back. It was from when we first got married. He was cooking shirtless and got splashed with hot oil. At the time, he joked that when our daughter starts dating, he must show her this badge of honor of a good Chinese man. Confirmed, the man sleeping beside me is undoubtedly my husband. Maybe seeing Lily recently brought back some unpleasant memories, making me start questioning the authenticity of my husband and daughter. But since our daughter has Avengers group chats, could my husband also be using a second phone to join similar groups? I pretended to sleep for over an hour, and after confirming my husband was in deep sleep, I quietly slipped out of bed, definitely not in the bedroom. I tidy up and do laundry there almost daily. The only two places my husband spends the most time at home are his study and the bathroom. Since I use the bathroom too, hiding a second phone there would be way too risky if he actually had one. Sure enough, after just a quick search in the study, I found an identical phone in a document box in the cabinet, exactly like the one in our daughter's wardrobe. I pressed the buttons a few times, but the screen stayed black. no idea if it was out of battery or intentionally turned off. The soundproofing in older residential complexes still leaves something to be desired. I was worried that if the startup sound was too loud, it might wake my daughter and husband. The next day, I pretended to leave for work but actually called my supervisor to take a sick day, saying I wasn't feeling well and needed to rest at home. Incorrect password, wrong password. After trying our anniversary and each of our family of three's birthdays, all resulting in incorrect password prompts, the device even locked me out for an hour. 240,714, the screen lit up. This was the exact time our family was killed, so my husband is a reincarnator too. The phone was completely empty. The WeChat app showed no sign of ever being opened, but it's also possible he logged out and cleared his login history every time. She seemed to have gotten suspicious yesterday. Are we sticking to the original plan, or should we go with a different approach? 2 messages sent last night at 8:56 caught my attention. The sender was an unregistered number with no name saved. Who could have sent these messages? Who is this she referring to? Is it Lily, the one trapped in the mountains filming videos? What's the other option? What's it about? Just then, I faintly heard voices at the door and the sound of keys turning. Oh no, my husband might have come back unexpectedly. I quickly snapped a photo of the message screen, turned off my phone, and put it back in place. I barely made it out of the study when the door swung open. Oh, what are you two doing back together? My husband, who should have been at work, and our daughter, who said she was going to see the grasslands, had actually returned together. Honey, why didn't you go to work today? Mom, are you feeling unwell somewhere? 2 voices chimed in one after another, as if they had conspired to ask me together. Oh, well, since you mentioned going on a trip, I came back to see what delicious meal I could prepare for your dad as a surprise. By the way, wasn't your flight to see the grasslands today? How come you came back with your dad? I subtly changed the subject. I thought it would be better to stay with mom and dad, so I canceled my ticket and came back before boarding. I drove to pick up my daughter, so we came back together. Their responses were perfectly ordinary, but the old me might have found them heartwarming. The sunlight streaming through the window filled the room with a warm, brilliant glow, yet now, my heart feels as though it's plunged into an ice cellar. When my husband asked why I didn't go to work today, it showed he knew I hadn't gone to the hospital, but he didn't know my reason for taking leave. When my daughter asked where I felt unwell, it revealed she knew exactly why I took the day off. This suggests there's a gap in communication between my husband and daughter that would invalidate the claim that he drove to pick her up. It's impossible they wouldn't have discussed this during the car ride. I pretended to glance at my phone. June 28, 9:28 a.m. No way, that's impossible. My gaze snapped toward my husband and daughter, who were already seated on the sofa. A closer look would reveal that my knuckles had turned white from gripping the phone too tightly. I accidentally gave the wrong departure time for my daughter's flight. I thought today was already June 29th, but it's actually still the 28th. But both she and her husband went along with my mistake and told 2 lies. Why would they lie to me? What secret are they hiding from me? Why can't they just admit they've been reborn too? What's the deal with those group messages on my daughter's phone and the anonymous texts on my husband's? For days now, I've been mulling over these things, trying to connect the dots. I'm trying to piece together the truth that my daughter and husband are hiding. 05 ending. These past few days, I've been quietly observing my husband and daughter's every move, as well as their occasional stutters in conversation. I haven't had the time, energy, or mental space to keep up with the latest videos from Hugo's family. I tried searching for that unfamiliar number that texted my husband on WeChat. They haven't enabled the feature to add contacts via phone number, so this method is a no-go. I made time to call, but it said their phone was turned off, so that's another dead end. Mom, I've noticed you haven't been scrolling through videos much lately. Oh, really? I guess work's been keeping me busy these days. Has my daughter noticed something? Lately, she's been following me around whenever she has time. She says she wants to spend more time with me before leaving for college, but given what happened earlier, the timing of her choosing to keep me company feels a bit coincidental. I can't shake the feeling of being watched. It feels less like companionship and more like surveillance. So, Mom, are you happy? How do you feel lately without looking at your phone? Silly child. I'm an adult. Why would something like not using my phone make me happy? even though my daughter and husband are keeping something from me, they're still the people I love most. Hurry to work, Mom, Dad, and I have a surprise for you when you get home tonight. There are too many mysteries surrounding me, and my mind is in turmoil. After hearing about my daughter's surprise, I actually felt much more at ease. I have a vague premonition that when I return tonight, all the things I couldn't figure out might finally have an answer. With the evening surprise on my mind, I happily headed home right at quitting time. Pushing open the door and seeing this scene before me, I let out a shattered scream. My daughter and husband lay in a pool of blood, just as they had before my rebirth, a stark contrast to the flowers and candles I had imagined. Summoning my courage, I stepped forward to check their breath, then collapsed to the ground in an instant. How could this happen? Who did this? But I was supposed to have been reborn. No reason, because Hugo and I have just been reborn too. Killing you is as easy as slaughtering chickens, and that dog, even if it didn't lunge at me, I'd still skin it alive. Watching the smug, petty Lily standing before me, and Hugo, her 6-year-old super bully son already up to her shoulder, all I feel in my heart is pure, undiluted hatred. Suddenly, a surge of adrenaline rushed through my veins from nowhere. It propelled me to bolt into the kitchen and grab the gleaming cleaver. You desk jockey screwed us over for ages. Did you really think a kitchen knife would scare us? If I could take you down once, I can do it again. Who do you think you're intimidating, bitch? You and your little monster son deserve to die. I charged forward like a cannonball, hacking at Lily and Hugo with a kitchen knife. To my astonishment, they didn't even try to fight back or dodge. 1 slash, 2 slashes, 3 slashes. By the time I stopped from exhaustion, I was drenched in blood, and the walls and sofa in the living room were already stained crimson. I've lost count of how many times I swung the blade. Why has fate treated me this way? Ever since my rebirth, I've cherished every moment spent with my husband and daughter. I've tried so hard to keep all the uncontrollable factors within my grasp. I leaned down and touched my husband and daughter. Then everything went black as I lost consciousness, charged to 200 joules, clear for shock. In the emergency room, the doctor pressed the defibrillator against the patient's chest with both hands, delivering repeated shocks. Dr. Lin, keep a close watch on the patient's heart rate and blood pressure. Dr. Liu, check with the brain injury department to see if they can assist with our next emergency procedure. The chaotic sounds and the humming of machinery pulled me back from the darkness. I mustered all my strength to open my eyelids, only to see a blinding ring of light before quickly sinking back into darkness. You really gave us the scare of our lives this time. Thank heavens you're safe and sound. Why would you ditch a perfectly good job? Take unpaid leave, and go be a beta tester for some virtual AI game. You almost didn't make it back. What matters is that you're home safe now. That's all that matters. Watching Dad discreetly wipe away tears, with Mom and older sister sobbing quietly, I'm sure I've finally made it back. I participated in a virtual AI game beta test for a certain gaming company, but unexpectedly, a bug occurred mid-game, and a murderer AI appeared within the game, after being killed. My brainwaves became trapped inside the game. Once the situation was deemed uncontrollable, a national professional AI technical team took over the later stages of the game. After my first rebirth, my consciousness was on the verge of collapse, making it impossible for me to return to the real world. That was already my second rebirth in the game, so after the second rebirth, the system assigned me a husband and daughter to help stabilize my mental state. I must bravely confront and overcome my past emotional burdens to return to reality. Now, I've made it. Gazing at the real world before me, I'm genuinely grateful to be alive. 3 months later, I was hypnotized to erase all memories of the game world, and the company that developed this game has completely vanished from the internet. Not a single trace remains. Story 2. Returning to the day before the apocalypse began, I started to hoard supplies frantically. However, the items I hoarded were quite unusual. While others stockpiled food and daily necessities, I stockpiled blood. This was because, once the apocalypse broke out, zombies roamed everywhere, and I was to become one of them. After waking up from a nightmare, I was unable to calm down for a long time, with gruesome images filling my mind. To verify whether I had merely had a nightmare or had indeed experienced the apocalypse and then returned to the day before it erupted, I spent an hour confirming that I had indeed been reborn, right back to the day before the apocalypse. This meant that by midnight tonight, I would turn into a zombie, a conscious one. During my time as a zombie, I pondered a question: is it a blessing or a curse to be a sentient zombie? This dilemma was manifested in the fact that despite being famished, I would rather crouch in a corner than feast on humans. Eventually devising ways to hunt small animals, I was considered a disgrace among zombies. Nevertheless, given another chance, I decided to continue being a disgraceful zombie. Without further ado, I began hoarding supplies in earnest, vowing to be a dignified and respectable zombie. My deceased parents had left me quite a fortune, including a large comprehensive supermarket. Of course, as a zombie, the supermarket wasn't much use, but it could serve as my shelter. I immediately sent all the employees away under the guise of business restructuring and locked the supermarket doors. Then, using most of my life savings, I bought a significant amount of plasma, firearms, ammunition, and bulletproof vests from the black market. While waiting for these supplies to arrive at the supermarket, I spent a large sum to reinforce the doors and windows of the building. After all, it was well known that in the apocalypse, the threat wasn't just from zombies, but also from human nature. My supermarket would be highly sought after in the apocalypse, certainly attracting many people. So it was essential to take precautions. Some might ask, since the supermarket is so conspicuous, why not find a more hidden place to live? Because there wasn't enough time. Where could I find a spacious place with a cold storage and a generator in such a short time? I had to make do with what I had. As the saying goes, money talks. Before long, a team of dozens of workers began to reinforce the doors and windows of the supermarket. I also went to the poultry market and bought many small animals. After all, the plasma supply was limited, and I didn't know how long my zombie life would last. I couldn't afford to sit back and run out of resources. Given the supermarket's abundant supplies and spacious area, it wasn't a bad idea to set aside a space to raise poultry, considering it as food prepared for myself. I also spent a good deal of money hiring a breeding expert to come to the supermarket and set up a small breeding base for me. I even earnestly learned quite a bit about breeding, as it was crucial to keep myself fed. As for the strange looks from others, I completely ignored them, remaining calm. After all, the apocalypse was imminent, and even if they became suspicious and called the police, there wouldn't be enough time for an investigation. Fortunately, the supermarket wasn't located in a busy downtown area but in a newly developed town, where the streets were sparsely populated and hardly any passers-by noticed the activity around the supermarket. Once everything was ready, night had fallen. There was no time for sorrow or reflection as I hurriedly arranged for people to convert the manager's office on the third floor of the supermarket into my bedroom. After the workers left, I looked around the spacious bedroom and felt a great sense of relief. The bedroom had everything: bed, wardrobe, mirror, TV, computer, and even a bathroom with a large bathtub. Even as a female zombie, I appreciated beauty. If there were conditions to make myself look neat and pretty, I would use them, and if not, I would create them. Glancing at the time, it was 10 o'clock at night. I started busily downloading countless songs and TV shows again, just in case the apocalypse left me with too much idle time. Time ticked by minute, and midnight was fast approaching. Standing by the window and gazing into the deep night, I couldn't help feeling nervous. Nobody knew how this catastrophe had started. But at the stroke of 12, some people began to mutate into zombies. They spread the zombie virus wildly by biting and preying on other humans. Unfortunately, I was among the first batch to mutate. I checked the time on my phone: 5 seconds to midnight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Almost simultaneously, I felt a severe dizziness. My vision darkened, my limbs went limp and weak, and I collapsed to the floor. Losing consciousness, when I came to, I knew I had successfully mutated into a zombie. Trying to move my hand was a bit of an effort. I opened my mouth, but only a hoarse and grating noise came out. I tried to move my feet but failed. This feeling was damnably familiar. Early-stage zombie movements are sluggish, but they gradually become more agile. So, I calmly waited for my body to adapt. Since there was no rush, I don't know how much time passed, but once I could move freely, I stood up, placed a chair by the window, and sat down to surf the internet on my phone. At first, there were only a few mentions of zombies online, but gradually, they increased. Meanwhile, the once quiet and empty streets began to echo with haunting screams. Peeking out, I saw a disheveled man running frantically down the street, chased relentlessly by a scantily clad female zombie. Soon, more and more people were fleeing, and there were even more zombies. As a zombie, my hearing and sight had sharpened, licking my teeth. They seemed to have grown sharper too. I could clearly see some exhausted people getting knocked down by zombies, who then bit off large chunks of flesh, blood spurting and splashing over the zombies' faces, making them appear even more horrifying and vile under the streetlights, with only their glistening white teeth visible. More zombies quickly swarmed over, completely overwhelming the people screaming in despair on the ground. Watching this scene, I felt a fierce and primal urge surge within me, as if a voice in my head was tempting me to feed. I quickly turned away, covering my face with my hands to calm down. It was a natural zombie instinct, not easy to suppress, but luckily, I was an experienced zombie, so the urge passed quickly. Looking out the window again. The number of zombies now clearly had the overwhelming advantage. The sparsely populated new district was like this, and one could only imagine what hell on earth the city center had become. I felt a bit sad, as this was a disaster for all humanity. At the same time, I felt somewhat relieved. My parents had passed away early, I had no close relatives or friends, and was used to being alone. At this moment, I didn't have to worry about the safety of others, and could afford to while away time in a supermarket. Gradually, the noise outside ceased, with only a few zombies aimlessly wandering the streets. With nothing more to watch, I got up and went to the mirror to examine my zombie self. There wasn't much difference, still had a nose and two eyes, though my skin was paler, an eerie, lifeless white with a hint of gray. The rest of my body looked just the same as before. The only drawback was that when I opened my mouth, I could only produce a harsh, unpleasant, ha, but if I kept my mouth shut, I still looked remarkably similar to my old self. I doubt anyone could recognize me as a zombie. Bored out of my mind, I turned on the TV to kill time. It was flooded with news of a zombie outbreak, urgently advising everyone to stay home and wait for rescue, and not to go outside. The night seemed especially long. As a zombie, I didn't need to sleep, so I just sat there until dawn. During the first few days, I lived quite freely and carelessly, wandering through the supermarket every day, feeding the little chickens and ducks, and while munching on chips and popcorn, I followed the drama series, Empresses in the Palace. Ugh, how disgusting. After a few chips, I couldn't help but spit them out. They tasted like wax in my mouth. I couldn't swallow them. I tried taking a sip of Sprite next, which went down easily enough, but it was tasteless and felt like nothing. Ah, what a waste of all the supplies in the supermarket, guarded by a zombie like me, only to sit there until they expire and spoil. Then, I heard a noise from downstairs, although it was very faint. How could it escape the ears of a zombie like me? I went to the window and glanced out, spotting over a dozen men gathered around the supermarket entrance. They must have come looking for supplies too, as they were the third group to do so. Landon, is this the supermarket? It should be. I heard it was a large supermarket, but there's no sign or anything. It really doesn't look like a supermarket. Hearing this, I snorted to myself. I had anticipated this and had already removed the supermarket sign and even taken it off various online shopping platforms to avoid drawing attention, but I didn't expect the supermarket to completely disappear without a trace. Here they were, still coming in droves. Since we're here, we might as well go in and check it out, right? The building is so big. Even if it's not a supermarket, there must be plenty of supplies. I think this is the supermarket. There's no other building around that could be associated with one, but the doors are tightly locked. We can't sneak in quietly. Stop the chatter and hurry up. Find a way to open the door before we end up attracting zombies. From behind the window, I listened to their whispers without worry. My place had been fortified so well that it was nearly impregnable to casual intruders. So I comfortably sat by the window, thoroughly entertained by their attempts to break into the supermarket door. Far more interesting than watching TV, but soon, I couldn't stay calm. When the group realized they couldn't quietly open the supermarket doors, they set their sights on the windows of the third floor. I had already sealed the second floor windows with bricks. Damn, we'd need a bomb to break through this door. It seems someone fortified this place. Looks like there really are good things here. Haha, our trip wasn't in vain. Hey fourth brother, aren't you a climbing expert? Can this little height stump you? but I don't have my full gear. Stop wasting time and figure out a way to climb up, or we'll starve to death sooner or later. Now, I was worried. I never thought someone would actually try to climb up the exterior, although I had installed bulletproof glass and anti-theft barriers. I couldn't just let them climb up, no way. I had to think of something. I glanced outside the window again and saw a man starting to climb up using simple climbing gear. At this point, I lost all interest in spectating. I turned around, left the bedroom, grabbed 2 beer bottles, and swiftly climbed up to the rooftop. Then, moving to the side, I aimed at the car parked below and threw the 2 beer bottles down. The moment the beer bottles shattered on the car, they emitted a crisp breaking sound, followed immediately by the car alarm blaring. The sudden noisy disruption in an otherwise quiet environment was jarring and anxiety-inducing. Though to me it sounded like music from heaven, I knew that my zombie brethren were about to swarm in for the kill. So, I excitedly made my way downstairs to witness the commotion. Back in the bedroom, I looked out the window, and lo and behold, the climber had already reached the 2nd floor, scrambling chaotically, his face pale with fear. Looking at the others, it was clear they understood that the endless blare of car alarms would soon draw the zombies in, causing them to panic. Landon, we need to run, the zombies are coming. But what about the 4th guy? Landon, wait for me, I'm going to jump, don't leave me behind. The man hanging from the 2nd floor cried out in terror. Don't come down, just stay there or keep climbing. Zombies can't climb, you're safe there. Can this really work? The 4th guy realized they were planning to abandon him and panicked. Please, I'm begging you, I'm scared. He began to cry, but the people below were already in deep trouble, unable to save themselves, let alone risk their lives to rescue him. Even spouses would fend for themselves in dire times, let alone temporary companions. Moments of life and death truly test human nature. And there, not far away, I saw zombies crazily running towards us. No one cared about the 4th guy anymore. They all scrambled to escape, their fear of zombies and the will to survive evidently unlocking their utmost potential, even outrunning the zombies. However, no matter how fast they were, they couldn't outrun the zombies coming from all directions, and soon, one man at the back was devoured. Watching the zombies chase the group further away, I shifted my gaze back to the 4th guy on the 2nd floor. Below him, a horde of zombies gathered, their grotesque faces waving their arms, trying to pull him down, and some zombies inside even attempted to climb the wall, though ineptly. They were just crazily trying to devour the 4th guy. Seeing those blood-stained, ragged zombies only capable of roaring with their gaping mouths, I couldn't help but feel disgusted. It was almost unbearable to watch. Thankfully I was a conscious zombie, not the mindless type like those downstairs. Looking back at the 4th guy, he was so terrified that he had peed himself. I clearly saw his urine streaming down his pants, dripping onto the faces and into the open mouths of the zombies below. The sight made me grimace in disgust. That was just too gross. The 4th guy couldn't care less about his dignity now. Having already peed, he just started crying helplessly, paralyzed with fear. He no longer had the strength to climb, only managing to cling to the wall, shivering. Thus, the zombies and the 4th guy were at a standoff for quite a while until he gradually calmed down. Watching his expression, I guessed he was considering climbing up again. Indeed, trapped in such a dire situation, going down was impossible. But just hanging there wasn't realistic either. The only option was to climb up. Perhaps he might even manage to escape into the building. It seemed I needed to think of something. Should I go up to the roof and drop something on him? Just as I hesitated, the zombies below seemed to lose patience and started climbing up in a frenzy. Then, I witnessed a shocking scene. Those zombies started stacking up like a human ladder, climbing higher and higher. It reminded me of a scene from the movie World War Z, where zombies piled up against high walls just like that, eventually overtaking the fortified city. I hadn't expected to see a scene from a movie play out in reality. I sighed. It seemed I no longer needed to come up with a plan. The zombies had already figured it out. Once again, the 4th guy was terrified beyond belief, far more scared than before, his whole body trembling. He wanted to climb up, but his limbs wouldn't cooperate, and in his panic, he nearly fell, and the zombies were getting closer. Help, please help me, I don't want to die, the 4th guy cried out in despair, and I couldn't help but feel a bit of pity for him. However, I will not lend a hand. I am neither a human nor a saint. saving him today would only bring disaster upon myself, so I quietly watched as the zombies climbed higher and higher, one of them successfully reaching out and grabbing fourth brother. Fourth brother's scream was terrifying and shrill. I couldn't bear to watch what happened next. It was too gruesome. The thick smell of blood made me feel nauseous, but it also stirred a gnawing hunger within me. In response, I stuffed a handful of popcorn into my mouth and chewed and swallowed aggressively, as if in retaliation. When all was quiet outside the window, I peered out again. Fourth brother had been completely devoured by the zombies. The horde had dissipated, and now only a few zombies lingered around the base of the building. The entrance and walls of the supermarket were filthy and stained with blood, and remnants of human bones and hair were visible. I found it disgusting. But then it occurred to me that this might actually be a good thing. The more rundown and bloodstained the place looked, the less likely it would attract others' attention. After this incident, I realized that a clean supermarket entrance simply wouldn't do. I needed to find a way to keep zombies around the supermarket regularly to deter others from coming too close. Making noise was not practical, as the car downstairs had already been destroyed by the zombies, and its noise had long since ceased, so I decided to use blood instead. Blood has a deadly attraction for zombies. They flock to the scent of it. At midnight, I took several bags of blood to the rooftop. After a while, a faint smell of blood wafted around the supermarket, drawing zombies gradually towards it. Feeling quite good about myself, I suddenly felt an impulse to shout out loud, so I didn't hold back. I stood with my hands on my hips, opened my mouth wide, and shouted forcefully, "Hee hee." After shouting, before I could even finish laughing, the zombies below also began to scream, echoing through the night, which was particularly eerie. What was going on? Instinctively, I leaned out to look and saw the crowd of zombies below all looking up in my direction. I could clearly see their decayed, flesh-rotting faces, and their eyes, some of which were severely damaged or just empty sockets, and without exception, those lifeless eyes were all staring straight at me. I was truly startled by the scene before me. My scalp felt like it was about to explode, and a chill swept over my body. In a panic, I fled back to my room. After returning to my bedroom, I sat on the sofa, trying to calm myself down. Although I was a zombie too, being stared at by so many at once was something I couldn't stay calm about. After a while, I looked out the window again and saw that many zombies were still looking up towards the rooftop, while others had returned to normal. Wandering around following the scent of blood in the air, I watched those few zombies looking at the rooftop until they finally lowered their heads, and I could breathe a sigh of relief, but I was left with a nagging question. Why had my shout attracted the attention of the zombies? Looking at the aimlessly wandering zombies, their voices hoarse and broken, they showed no interest in their peers. This issue made me resolve to keep quiet in the future. Otherwise, I had no better solution. I certainly didn't have the courage to run into the crowd of zombies to experiment and find answers. I had been socially anxious as a human, and being a zombie certainly hadn't turned me into a social butterfly. After calming down, I opened my smartphone to check the news. The entire urban area was in chaos, with many survivors posting gruesome and brutal videos online. The scent of death seemed to hang over the entire city, oppressively so. And the situation was no better elsewhere in the world. The disaster had erupted globally at the same time, and humanity was almost completely devastated. I couldn't help but feel a sincere sense of relief. Actually, becoming a zombie isn't really a bad thing when you think about it pragmatically. At least I don't have to spend every day in fear, constantly struggling to survive. Plus, I've got this huge supermarket all to myself, which should keep me safe and sound for a good while. After being alone for a long time, loneliness inevitably sets in, so I started finding ways to pass the time. For instance, I'd grab a bunch of cosmetics from the beauty section of the supermarket and follow online makeup tutorials to doll myself up. Or I'd try playing dress-up games following videos. One day, I decided to go for a sexy look. After applying a stunningly seductive makeup, I was thrilled to rummage through the clothing section and picked out several sexy little dresses. I was really looking forward to this dress-up session, not to boast, but my figure is genuinely impressive. Long legs, a slim waist, and curves in all the right places. So, I tried on the dresses one by one, and finally chose a crimson spaghetti strap mini dress. This dress barely covered the back with just thin crisscrossing red straps. and the front had a deep V-neck adorned with a layer of thin, nearly transparent red lace, subtly revealing yet concealing. The hem just barely covered my bottom. This dress was over-the-top sexy, but it was exactly to my liking. Why not try it, right? No one was around to see, and it wouldn't hurt anyone. All the windows were covered with one-way mirror film, and the curtains were drawn. Before slipping into the new dress, I indulged in a luxurious bath. Stretching freely in a bathtub full of bubbles, after playing with the bubbles, I pretentiously applied a face mask, and elegantly sipped a red liquid from a goblet placed next to the tub. However, the red liquid wasn't wine, it was blood. I resisted the urge to gulp it down, savoring it slowly, sip by sip, until the glass was empty. Then, I comfortably closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. Ah, what comfort! Was I ever this comfortable when I was alive? Perhaps it was too comfortable because it made me let my guard down, so when I abruptly opened my eyes realizing something was off, it was already too late. I saw a young man leaning against the bathroom door, looking straight at me. In an instant, I couldn't help but tremble. That young man with the perfect face. I had seen him in my past life as a zombie. He was a ruthless demon who wouldn't blink an eye while killing zombies. Yes, to me, a zombie, he was indeed a demon, under such immense shock. My first instinct was to scream, but the little rationality I had left made me cover my mouth tightly with my hands. How could I even scream now? Any sound would just come out as a hoarse hiss, blatantly exposing my identity as a zombie. That would surely be the end of me. Terrified, I kept my mouth shut, staring at the man by the door. He stood casually with his hands in his pockets, his deep and sharp gaze fixed on me, yet his lips curled into a subtle, indescribable smile. I was petrified, unable to voice my questions, so we just stared at each other. I was internally grateful for the layer of bubble foam, otherwise, this rascal might have seen everything. Is this supermarket yours? He finally spoke, his voice deep and surprisingly pleasant. I nodded. He continued to stare at me and asked, "Is there anyone else here?" I shook my head. I looked at him with genuine fear, completely baffled. Are we really just going to chat like this? I'm still naked. Isn't that a bit impolite? Even zombies have their dignity. The man seemed thoughtful as he looked at me, then asked, "Mute, mute." I was taken aback, just about to deny it, but then had a stroke of inspiration and nodded in agreement. Being mute is great, as it means I don't have to speak and reveal my identity. In my heart, I was 1,000,000% sure that if this handsome guy in front of me found out I was a zombie, I'd be dead on the spot. "Come out after you've put on your clothes." After dropping this line, the handsome guy left and thoughtfully closed the door behind him. Tearlessly, I stared at the overly sexy red dress, seriously considering the chances of survival if I jumped out the window. How on earth did that damn demon get in here without anyone noticing? Oh God, are you messing with me? When I hesitantly stood in front of the handsome guy dressed in the provocative red dress, I felt this was the biggest social death scene of my life. The handsome guy was clearly not expecting me to come out looking like this and was taken aback for a moment. Just then, the bedroom door was pushed open from outside, but before anyone could enter, the handsome guy quickly grabbed something from the table and threw it. With a loud bang, the door was slammed shut. "Wait outside," the handsome guy called out to the person outside the door, biting my lip in silence, furious but unable to speak. The object that the handsome guy had thrown was my iPad, now shattered on the floor. When I looked at the handsome guy with a sorrowful expression, he misunderstood, thinking I was thanking him for blocking the person outside, and generously said, "No need to thank me." My face expressionless, I twitched the corner of my mouth, thinking I really should thank you. Damn it all. The handsome guy wanted to ask me something, but since I was mute, he added me on Instagram instead. If this had happened back when I was human, would have been thrilled. But now I was terrified, my hands shaking so much I could barely hold my phone. No matter how handsome, life is more precious. After tremblingly accepting his friend request, I received his first message. "My name is Lawson. We're just here to look for supplies. No harm intended, don't worry." Looking at his message, I hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell the truth. "Actually, I can speak. I'm just mute, not deaf." Lawson, but I wasn't in the mood to mock his foolishness. After a brief thought, I made a decision. "I can share some of the supermarket supplies with you, but you must leave immediately and promise not to bother me again." I sent the message nervously watching Lawson, hoping he would take what he could and leave. After all, the supermarket stuff was practically useless to me. As long as I could get rid of this plague, the goods were just material things. Lawson's expression stiffened for a moment when he read the word bother, and he looked over. Not very friendly, facing Lawson's dark gaze, I shivered involuntarily and took a step back, tentatively sending another message. What's wrong? Is it too little for you? Then I'll give you half of the supermarket's goods. Just please leave quickly. Okay, that's a lot of goods given the size of the supermarket. I hope this jerk doesn't fail to see the good deal. Lawson raised an eyebrow at me, and to my surprise, he chuckled, the aloofness in his eyes instantly melting. I looked at him puzzled, not understanding what he found amusing. The supermarket was left to me by my parents, and I'm the only one left in my family. I have the authority. Don't worry. I wanted to say something more, but before I could type, I sensed something was wrong. Lawson noticed it too, his lazy demeanor suddenly turning serious. We both hurried to the window and looked out. Under the dim moonlight, several people were stealthily approaching the supermarket. Their movements were very light, afraid of alerting the zombies nearby. However, I had already gotten a good look at the faces of the leaders. These individuals appeared strong and fierce, with sharp knives in their hands and numerous firearms hanging on their bodies, clearly not ordinary people. Among them was a familiar face, Landon, who had visited before. This realization made my heart sink. This aggressive group was obviously brought by Landon. Thump, 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 a soft knock came from the bedroom door, followed by a low voice saying, "Boss, there's a situation." From the sound of it, there was only one person outside the bedroom, meaning Lawson had come with just one companion. If Lawson weren't here, I might have been able to lure the surrounding zombies to us. But in Lawson's presence, I dared not make any rash moves. If I slipped up in front of him, I would not live to see another second. However, after witnessing those people swiftly killing zombies, I couldn't hold back anymore and grabbed Lawson's arm. To be honest, if I were to fall into the hands of those brutal thugs, I would rather cling to Lawson's legs. Lawson looked at my hand on his arm with a hint of surprise, then glanced at me. Somehow, his gaze seemed profound and strange. At that moment, the group stopped about 500 meters from the supermarket. The leader, a man with a scarred face, gestured to someone beside him, and then a few people emerged from behind, each carrying another person. They tiptoed to a corner, put down the people they were carrying, and quickly retreated. I watched those laid down at the corner, their eyes tightly shut, not knowing whether they were dead or alive, unable to figure out what the scarred man intended to do, but I soon got my answer. The scarred man took a crossbow, aimed it at the people in the supermarket corner, and shot. The hit person groaned, waking up and moaning unconsciously in severe pain. Their moans instantly attracted the nearby zombies, who roared and pounced on the people on the ground. In an instant, the quiet night was filled with heart-wrenching screams. I watched in disbelief as the scarred man and his group used crossbows and silencers to shoot the zombies. Were they really using living people as targets? Looking at the group led by the scarred man, I felt nauseous, thinking they were more terrifying and hateful than the zombies. At the same time, I realized that I might not be able to save the supermarket. The supermarket, hastily fortified in half a day, could fend off individual coveters, but not the beastly ferocity of the scarred man and his group. I looked at Lawson, who also appeared solemn, and sent him a message. "It looks like you'll leave empty-handed too. You should go." Lawson gave me a puzzled look. I smiled and continued texting. "Even if I have to destroy the supermarket, I won't let them have their way." I turned to leave, but Lawson stopped me. "It doesn't seem like it's time to burn bridges yet." He spoke calmly, his demeanor composed, seemingly unbothered by the imminent crisis. I looked down at my wrist, which he was holding, and after a moment of shock, I tried to pull away. My body lacked the warmth of a living human, only the coldness of death. And I feared he might notice something was wrong, but his attention seemed to be focused downstairs. He didn't even spare me a glance, and I quietly breathed a sigh of relief. I'm going downstairs to hold them off. I didn't know what Lawson planned to do, but I couldn't just stand idly by, so I instinctively followed. Lawson stood at the door, his aloof gaze sweeping over me. He didn't stop me but calmly reminded, "You should change your clothes first." I froze, then looked at the mirror. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, after hurriedly changing into proper clothes and reaching the rooftop, I found Lawson already taking action. He fired 2 shots with a silenced pistol at the man with the scar and his group. The 2 men hit by the bullets almost instinctively cried out in pain, instantly revealing their whereabouts. Thousands of zombies, attracted by the noise, charged towards them relentlessly. The scarred man and his group frantically attacked the zombies with their weapons. But against these insensible, undeterred creatures, even their fiercest attacks were futile. In a short while, the scarred man's group suffered heavy losses, with only a few survivors pushed back to the entrance of the supermarket. Watching the fierce-looking scarred man, I suddenly had a bad feeling. Sure enough, in the next second, I saw him pull out a grenade, intending to blow up the supermarket door. But Lawson was quicker and shot the man with a scar in the blink of an eye. Watching the scarred man fall with disbelief, I quietly increased the distance between Lawson and myself. This man was too dangerous. The death of the scarred man sent the few remaining into a panic, quickly losing their will to fight. Some took their own lives, others were devoured. Although Lawson was terrifying, he did save the supermarket, so I generously offered him half of the supermarket supplies. Thank you, after receiving such a significant favor from me. Lawson's expression finally warmed a bit, and he even managed a polite thank you. I lowered my head and typed earnestly, "You're welcome, take the supplies and get as far away as possible." After sending the message, I panicked at the word, "get," realizing my hands had moved faster than my brain. I knew Lawson had seen the message because I felt his gaze bearing down on me like Mount Tai, filling me with dread and regret. Under this invisible pressure, I reluctantly retracted the message and tried to salvage the situation by sending another. What I meant was, after parting ways, may we never meet again. Yes, that was the sentiment. Lawson stared at me for a while, making my skin crawl, so I stepped back several paces. "What are you doing?" The man accompanying Lawson looked at us, puzzled. I spread my hands, indicating my confusion as well. I was already being so generous, yet he still looked at me like that. Did he expect me to pack up the entire supermarket for him? Lawson withdrew his gaze and signaled to the man. Then they both headed downstairs. As the man left, he amiably greeted me. "Hello, beautiful, my name is Lu Ning. Pleased to meet you." Well, one does not slap a smiling face. I managed a strained smile, hoping they would just leave quickly. Lawson's efficiency was indeed formidable. That evening, 3 large trucks arrived and swept away a large pile of supplies like autumn leaves. I sat on a small stool on the rooftop, watching the trucks stir up the zombies around them, but like a solid wall of iron and copper, the trucks remained unmoved amidst the tide of zombies. Watching them, I felt a twinge of envy. If only my supermarket was as secure. I chugged most of a bottle of Sprite and then belched loudly, expressing my dissatisfaction. The next second, I was startled by a sudden shadow beside me, belching even louder. This person moves so silently. I stealthily glared at Lawson beside me, sinking into thought. As a zombie, my senses are sharp, but why didn't I notice Lawson's presence? No wonder he caught me off guard while I was showering. It wasn't my carelessness. But perhaps this man is no ordinary human. Mysterious enough to be frightening. Lawson stood beside me for a while. Soon, the trucks were loaded and left. I watched dazedly as the trucks disappeared into the night sky. Did they forget something? The plague-like Lawson was still standing next to me. Lawson didn't leave on the truck for a reason. He had a helicopter coming to pick him up. "Thanks, consider this a favor owed to you. If you ever need help in the future, just contact me." For the first time, Lawson showed a friendly and pleasing demeanor. After the flattery took me by surprise, I didn't forget to send a message to confirm. "Help with anything?" Lawson looked at me, a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. "Yes, but only once, so use it wisely." Me, seriously, couldn't you be a bit more generous without dying? As Lawson was about to leave, he added, "Be careful with everything, never let your guard down." I forced a smile, feeling somewhat annoyed. After watching the helicopter take off, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Finally, I could relax a bit, but just as I was about to head downstairs, a loud bang echoed from the distant sky. I instinctively looked over and was shocked to see Lawson's helicopter crash. My emotions were mixed. Lawson, who had just warned me to be cautious, had now crashed himself. It was ironic, indeed, looking down at the zombies. I noticed they were already attracted by the explosion and were rushing towards the site. This made me feel even more conflicted. I didn't know if Lawson was dead, but the odds were not in his favor. Even if he was still alive, he would likely soon become a meal for the zombies. The thought of such a handsome guy being devoured by zombies made me feel it was a terrible waste. Considering he had helped me a lot, my heart grew heavier. What was I to do? While blending in with the zombies and running in the opposite direction of the crash, I questioned my own impulsiveness. I wasn't usually someone who went out of their way to help others, yet here I was, risking my life to find Lawson, who was a professional at killing zombies. This question lingered in my mind until I found Lawson after much effort. I checked his breathing with my index finger, and finding he was still alive, I sighed, thinking of it as repaying a favor. After all, he was no ordinary person. Saving his life now could make things easier if we met again, right? Even if I became a zombie, he couldn't possibly ignore his benefactor without conscience, could he? As I struggled to drag him towards the supermarket, I kept encouraging myself, but he was so heavy that I soon lost patience. Maybe, just leave him here. Life and death are predestined, right? In the end, I couldn't bring myself to abandon him, especially after noticing his handsome face was scratched up. However, I made an interesting discovery. It seemed Lawson had a special constitution. Not only could I, as a zombie, not detect his presence, but the surrounding hordes of zombies also ignored him. Remembering how I had commanded the zombies before, an idea suddenly struck me. I tried howling, and the zombies turned to look at me in unison. I found it amusing and howled again with a command. Realizing they obediently cooperated as if I was their leader, surprised. I realized the zombies actually listened to me, so I had a couple of relatively decent-looking zombies carry Lawson back to the supermarket. After sending the errand zombies away, I looked at Lawson lying on my bed, unsure of what to do next. After a moment of contemplation, I decided to remove his clothes to check for other injuries. I swear, my intentions were pure until the moment I was about to remove his pants. When I inadvertently looked up, I found him silently watching me, startled. I fell back onto the floor. Lawson didn't speak. His gaze shifted from my face to his unbuckled belt and then back to me, his expression unreadable. There was a moment when, overwhelmed by immense shame, I thought about jumping off the building to join the zombies. Why couldn't I just wake up? And why do I always act so impulsively? Although my intentions were good, anyone seeing the situation would think I was desperately taking advantage of it. Still, I felt the need to clear my name. In a fluster, I sent him an Instagram message. I swear I wasn't trying to hit on you. I just wanted to check if you were okay. After sending the message, I realized Lawson didn't have his phone with him, so like a turtle shrinking its head back into its shell, I took my phone over for him to see. Then I felt that wasn't quite right either. My explanation, like an unexplained explanation, made my checking him over seem rather suggestive. So I took back my phone and rephrased it. What I mean is, I genuinely just wanted to see if you had any other injuries. I had no other intentions. Please believe me. Lawson glanced at the text I had typed, and amidst my anxious gaze, he hummed in acknowledgement. What did that hum mean? I had managed to save him, and I didn't want to ruin the good impression he had of me with these baseless accusations. I was determined to solidify my role as his life-saving hero. Just as I was about to explain further, Lawson spoke first. Don't be nervous. You saved my life. I can't thank you enough. His voice was slightly hoarse and weak, but inexplicably pleasant to the ear. Not only was his voice pleasant, but so were his words. I didn't expect him to be such a grateful person. I silently applauded myself for my altruistic act. This move was worth it. Grateful, don't mention it. Does this mean you owe me an even bigger favor? I quickly typed this on my phone as I moved closer to Lawson. In the future, as your lifesaver, shouldn't you help me unconditionally if I need it? After typing, I looked at Lawson with anticipation. I knew from a past life that he was no ordinary person, so if I could secure his support, it would definitely be a profitable move. Lawson looked at me with a meaningful gaze, but I couldn't decipher what his deep, inscrutable eyes meant. Okay, I heard his pleasant voice make a promise. I tried to keep my cool, but I couldn't help but smile broadly, thinking that with the big boss covering me, I could live worry-free for the rest of my life. Overjoyed, I couldn't resist showing off a bit, so I reached out to adjust his belt. Lawson's expression stiffened, and he struggled to grasp my hand. I don't break my promises, so there's no need for such gestures. Give me a break. I was just trying to fasten your belt. I gave him a stern look and roughly fastened the belt. After staying at my place for 2 days, Lawson was back to his lively self. According to him, he had jumped from the helicopter before it exploded, and the massive blast had knocked him out. He didn't ask how I found him or how I managed to bring him back to the supermarket, so I didn't bring it up either. If he really pressed the issue, I'd have a hard time explaining how a frail woman like me managed to safely break through a zombie horde and bring him back unscathed. During this time, my supermarket was repeatedly visited by survivors who tried every means to occupy it. My Eden had become highly coveted, eyed greedily by many. Lawson also helped me several times, which further solidified my desire to stick with him. I had to admit, even though I had lived another life, I was still too naive, thinking that fortifying the supermarket would be enough. Reality proved that without Lawson, my supermarket might have changed hands by now. I'm no genius, but I do have some street smarts, and I've always been clear about my own capabilities. To survive this apocalypse, I needed to cling to the coattails of a powerful ally. Lacking ambition is no shame when survival is at stake. So, when Lawson was preparing to leave, I shamelessly offered, "How about I give you the remaining supplies from the supermarket?" Lawson shifted his gaze from his phone. He asked me with a semi-smiling expression, "Are you playing the good guy?" I gave an awkward smile and quickly typed back, "I'm not that noble." Lawson stood beside me, looking down seriously as I typed on my phone. "You said you want to repay your debts of gratitude, so, does that mean you only have the chance to repay when I'm around?" I subtly expressed my intentions, being a clever man. Lawson caught on immediately. "You want to follow me?" I blinked earnestly and nodded. "Are you sure?" Lawson continued. I nodded seriously again. 2 days later, I followed Lawson with 3 large suitcases and boarded a helicopter. Throughout the flight, I nervously clutched the corner of Lawson's clothing, terrified that the helicopter might explode again. Lawson turned his head and whispered reassuringly, "Don't worry, it won't explode this time." Surprised that he knew what I was thinking, I couldn't help but relax. About 2 hours later, we arrived at a base hidden deep in the mountains and dense forests. I cautiously surveyed my surroundings and noticed that the people here were all well-trained and distinguished, all referring to Lawson as the boss. It seemed they were all Lawson's elite troops. I shivered, realizing I had thrown myself into the lion's den. I knew I had to keep my cover tightly secured from now on. The next few days were relatively peaceful. People at the base were constantly coming and going, and Lawson was elusive. The others were quite polite to me, partly out of gratitude for the supplies I provided, partly out of pity for me being mute, and partly because I was a guest brought back by their boss. So, my life was quite comfortable. I strolled through the woods daily and hid in my room to drink some blood. 2 of my 3 suitcases were filled with blood bags. I thought I could continue living leisurely, but one day, Lawson approached me, asking for a favor. Given the principle of needing to bow under the eaves, I agreed readily, unexpectedly. He took me on the helicopter and flew directly to the city. When the helicopter landed on the rooftop of a high-rise, I looked at Lawson, perplexed, silently asking what was going on. But before Lawson could speak, zombies suddenly appeared from all directions. I watched in shock as the others deftly eliminated the zombies, growing fearful that they might discover I was actually a zombie too. I dared not think further. The zombies on the rooftop were quickly dealt with, and Lawson stood on the ground, extending his hand. "Be careful." I hesitated before reaching out my hand and then jumped down from the helicopter. The others had already entered the building, leaving only me and Lawson on the rooftop. Lawson, holding my hand, tried to enter the building, but I stood still, facing Lawson's questioning gaze. I took out my phone and began typing. "What exactly is this about?" The feeling of being kept in the dark was unpleasant, especially feeling like a mere tool in the midst of it all. Lawson seemed to sigh, then explained, "There's a mutated zombie here that we've tried several times to handle without success." Hearing Lawson's words, I stiffened. "So you knew all along?" I typed mechanically. "You knew I was a zombie, right?" Lawson said he had known from the beginning. I felt a mix of panic and confusion, wondering what he meant by having known all along. "Why didn't you kill me?" I asked, not understanding. Lawson rarely smiled, his voice soft and gentle. "At first, I just found it interesting. A sentient and generous zombie like you would be a waste to kill. Besides, you saved my life. How could I repay kindness with ingratitude? I awkwardly looked away, realizing he had seen through my act. So, I stopped hiding. I grumbled twice to express my dissatisfaction. Since everything was already known, why wasn't it discussed earlier? And to make matters worse, I was dragged here to deal with some mutated zombies. Lawson understood what I meant and gave a wry smile, then said, I admit, I was wrong this time, but given the urgency of the situation, let's deal with the immediate problems first. I'll make it up to you when we return. Seeing his sincere attitude, I reluctantly nodded in agreement. Once we entered the building, I noticed numerous zombies scattered haphazardly on the floor, clearly the handiwork of the team that had entered before us. Their combat effectiveness was undeniably impressive. The mutated zombie is on the third floor. We need to move quickly. As Lawson whispered this to me, he pulled me towards the elevator. The elevator doors had been pried open by his men, and I saw them tying ropes and jumping down the shaft. I immediately felt uneasy. Turning around without saying a word, I was ready to leave, jumping from the top floor to the third. You've got to be kidding. This was too much for me, however. Lawson grabbed me and pulled me close, whispering, hold on tight. Before I could protest, he wrapped his arms around my waist and jumped. As we rapidly descended, I clung to Lawson's waist while mentally cursing him with every swear word I had learned in my life. After safely landing on the third floor, my legs were so weak I couldn't stand on my own. I continued to cling to Lawson, ignoring the curious and gossip-filled glances from others. Lawson considerately stood by me for a while as the rest of the team dealt with the oncoming zombies. As the zombies were nearly wiped out, Lawson gently tapped my head and said, all right, time to fight. The search for the mutated zombie wasn't easy. Through Lawson's brief explanation, I understood the basics. This mutated zombie was stronger and more intelligent than the regular ones, always managing to avoid long-range attacks and brutally retaliating against ordinary survivors. Thus, Lawson brought a small elite team, including me, to eliminate this mutated zombie. Honestly, I wanted to ask him what made him so confident in me. When I finally saw the mutated zombie, my legs went weak again. It was like the Hulk. I felt it could crush me with just its fingers. Can you try to control it? Lawson even asked me such a question, making me want to slap some sense into him. Dude, I'm not even a match for its dental floss, and you want me to control it? My silence made Lawson back off, and he said, just watch from the side and be careful. He then joined the fight. I crouched in a corner watching Lawson and his team of 10 attack the nearly 3-meter-tall mutated zombie, my hands sweating. The mutated zombie's combat strength was overwhelming, and it was incredibly strong. What was most insane was that it seemed immune to blades and bullets. I saw Lawson's team throw several grenades at it, but they only caused minor superficial injuries, which only enraged it further. It swatted a team member away with a slap. Then, out of nowhere, a zombie lunged at the unconscious team member. I rushed over and blocked it. Although the zombie halted, it growled discontentedly as 3 more zombies appeared behind it, eager to devour the team member. I roared threateningly at the zombies, firmly protecting the team member. While I might not be a match for the mutated zombie, failing to handle regular zombies would be embarrassing. Fortunately, the zombies eventually backed off, but I was still worried, so I checked the team member's breathing and, finding he was still alive, breathed a sigh of relief and stayed by his side to guard him. Suddenly, a terrifying roar startled me. It was the mutated zombie, seemingly driven completely mad. The attack became more vicious, putting Lawson and his team at a disadvantage. As I watched Lawson's team struggle with their offense, I became worried about what I would do if Lawson died young. After all, I had given him all my fortune. If he died, wouldn't I be at a huge loss? To avoid ending up on the streets, I mustered the courage and charged forward, using all my strength to scream at the mutant zombie. My sudden appearance confused the mutant zombie, causing it to stop its attack and look at me hesitantly. Damn, this might work. But just then, one of the team members threw a grenade at the zombie's head, blowing off half of its face. I cursed inwardly, knowing this was bad. As expected, the heavily injured mutant zombie entered a frenzy mode. It completely ignored me, roaring and attacking indiscriminately. Its wildly swinging arms nearly crushed me, but I quickly dropped to the ground, narrowly avoiding a lethal blow. turning to look at Lawson. I saw he wasn't faring much better. Hey, I growled angrily at Lawson. Do you still expect me to control it? I was nearly killed because of you, you jerk. Realizing that I couldn't handle the mutant zombie, Lawson shouted, "Get over here." I scrambled behind Lawson, not forgetting to cheer him on. Hey, Lawson glanced at me, then charged back to confront the mutant zombie. As I anxiously watched from the side, the zombie lunged at a nearby team member. In a flash, the teammate dodged the attack. However, he managed to dodge. But the mutant zombie charged straight at me. Thanks a lot, I thought sarcastically. With nowhere to run, I trembled and closed my eyes, preparing for the worst, cursing the teammate in my heart. Unexpectedly, before the zombie could strike, someone tackled me to the ground. Shocked, I opened my eyes to find Lawson had saved me. He wasn't near me just moments ago. How did he manage to rush over so quickly? Before I could figure it out, I noticed that Lawson looked terrible. I scrambled up, ready to check if he was injured, but my movements were too abrupt, causing Lawson to grimace in pain. Seeing this, I was sure he was hurt. Indeed, his back was deeply scratched by the mutant zombie, the wounds severe and the skin flayed. Panicking, I gestured wildly, trying to say something, but all that came out were gasps. Lawson smiled reassuringly and said with a still calm voice, "I'm immune, it's just a minor injury, no big deal." This mutant zombie was incredibly tough, and even Lawson's elite squad couldn't subdue it. To make matters worse, in an attempt to save a teammate, Lawson got caught by the zombie. Watching the zombie open its massive jaws to devour Lawson, I couldn't hold back anymore. I charged forward again, roaring in an attempt to stop it. Strangely, I felt no fear at that moment, only a single thought: I had to save Lawson. The mutant zombie glanced at me with its remaining eye but continued to try to feed Lawson into its mouth. In that critical moment, I don't know where the strength came from, but I felt an unprecedented power surge through me. Without thinking, I jumped onto a nearby table, then leaped to grab the zombie's shoulder and smashed my fist into its half-blown head. With a fierce roar, my momentum seemed to intimidate the mutant zombie. At that moment, all I could feel was an overwhelming rage. Lawson was my hard-earned pillar of support, and you actually thought of devouring him. Damn it, there I was, standing my ground against a mutated zombie, when out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lawson calmly pull out a hand grenade and stuff it into the zombie's mouth. My courage instantly evaporated, scared away by Lawson's bold move. "Lawson, you fool, even if you're resigned to blowing up the zombie, did you have to drag me into it?" In these desperate moments, I always managed to tap into my extraordinary potential. Just as I was about to pull Lawson and jump away, he pulled me into his arms instead and leaped with me through a nearby shattered window. For a moment, I was completely panicked. Lawson always pulls these stunts without consulting me, terrifying anyone with a fear of heights. Before we even hit the ground, the grenade exploded with a deafening roar. The explosion was massive, and since we weren't far from it, we were inevitably affected. However, what surprised me was that at the moment we landed, Lawson instinctively acted as my human cushion. As a result, I was unscathed, but Lawson, who I had landed on, had passed out. By then, the third floor was ablaze, and I assumed the mutated zombie was blown to bits, but my heart was still in knots, because Lawson was clearly seriously injured, and I felt that him being unconscious was largely due to him cushioning my fall. This left me feeling incredibly guilty, as if I had brought this upon him. At that time, I had no other choice, unsure of the extent of Lawson's injuries. I dared not move him and could only squat beside him, silently watching over him. Fortunately, our team quickly found us and airlifted us back to base. At the base, a doctor informed us that Lawson's injuries were not life-threatening, though he had suffered several fractures, which was a stroke of luck under the circumstances. I didn't dare tell others that his fractures were largely my fault. I feared they might kick me out of the base, especially since I had given them all the supplies from the supermarket. Staying here was justifiable, so I comfortably nested in the base while actively attending to Lawson. He was bedridden now, and I generously shared with him the downloaded series, Empress in the Palace, while watching TV and sipping on a blood bag. I was thoroughly enjoying myself. After all, Lawson knew I was a zombie, and I had nothing to hide, happily drinking from blood bags in front of him every day. he surprisingly didn't mind at all and let me do as I pleased. I chalked all this up to the life-saving debt I owed him, though he had saved me too. But isn't it right that we each acknowledge our own debts? As Lawson recovered swiftly, thanks to his exceptional physical condition, he soon went out with his team to hunt zombies again. Without him to watch TV with, even drinking blood bags felt dull and tasteless. I found myself bored to tears, eagerly waiting for his return. After enough of this tedious routine, I volunteered to join Lawson on his zombie-killing excursions to clear my mind. For a long while, we didn't encounter any mutated zombies again. Killing regular zombies became a breeze. I would often just sit cross-legged, and with a shout, the zombies would freeze like statues. Many times, Lawson would take me to hospitals where he hunted zombies while I looked for blood bags. Finding them, I'd happily bag them and hand them to Lawson, then cheerfully head back to the base with him. Gradually, Lawson began bringing live poultry back to the base, not rushing to share them but instead starting to raise them. Seeing those lively little animals made my mouth water, yet I dared not sneak a drink. "What are you doing?" Just as I was stealthily drooling over a chick, Lawson suddenly appeared behind me. I was startled and dropped the chick I was holding. "Hey," I grumbled unhappily, "this guy always appears out of nowhere." Lawson, on the other hand, smiled good-naturedly and picked up the chick, handing it back to me. I looked at him, puzzled. With a click of his tongue and a shake of his head, Lawson said, "You usually seem so clever. Why so naive now? These animals were meant to be for you, silly." For me, I looked at Lawson, confused, trying to gauge the sincerity of his words. Is he just teasing me? The amusement in Lawson's eyes deepened, and he even ruffled my hair, saying, "Constantly drinking blood must be dull, right? Have something fresh to improve your meals." His words nearly moved me to tears. How had I never realized before that Lawson was so understanding and considerate? I patted Lawson on the shoulder and chuckled warmly. I said, "Good deeds are always rewarded." Then I took the chick to a secluded corner to improve my meal. Since I am a girl and needed to maintain some image, not indulging openly in front of others, life visibly got better, mainly reflected in the many nice things Lawson brought me whenever he went out: food, utilities, entertainment, everything I could wish for. Even when we went out to fight zombies, he wouldn't let me lift a finger, just set up a small stool from the car for me to sit on in a clean spot and wait for him. Without realizing it, under the big boss's protection, I lived a life of luxury as a zombie. This was something I had never expected at the beginning. As time passed, humans had established many safe bases and started to handle zombies with ease. After all, most zombies are just walking corpses, powerless under the might of absolute weaponry. And here I was, a zombie, living carefree and safely within Lawson's base. One day, Lawson brought me some good news. He said that with the joint efforts of top experts around the world, there had been a breakthrough in the development of a zombie serum, and its use was just around the corner. Zombie serum? Could I possibly turn back into a human one day? I hardly dared believe it, so I took out my phone and started typing. "Who knows if it's true?" Lawson smiled. "The research team includes members of my family." That certainly added some credibility, but I felt a bit lost. I didn't know if I could continue to stay here if I turned back into a human. Probably not, right? Suddenly, I wasn't so eager for the zombie serum anymore. Noticing my unease, Lawson asked with concern, "What's wrong? You don't seem very happy." I continued typing, conflicted. "Is me turning back into a human good news for you?" Lawson nodded and chuckled. "Indeed, it's good news." Before I could feel disappointed, he whispered in my ear, "When you turn back into a human, wear that red dress for me again." The red dress, that sexy, enchanting red dress. At his words, I turned my head sharply, not realizing he was so close, and accidentally planted a firm kiss on his chin. I was shocked. Lawson was also startled, then couldn't help but laugh. Coming to my senses, I quickly pushed him away, trembling and speechless. If I were human right now, my face would surely be flushed and my heart pounding. Lawson maintained the posture from being pushed away, a light smile in his eyes and a slight curl to his lips, leisurely saying, "When you turn back into a human, it's not too late to throw yourself into my arms." I pretended to be calm. With a dismissive snort, she voiced her disdain. What a shameless ruffian. Yet, secretly, she began to look forward to the day the serum would be available. with Lawson, the influential figure on her side. The future seemed promising. 2 years later, Lawson took me to get the zombie serum injection. Honestly, I was a bit nervous, but Lawson seemed even more so. He was tense and kept patting my head, whispering reassurances. "It'll be over soon, don't be afraid." I pulled out my phone and started typing. "Seems like you're more nervous than me." Lawson chuckled with a sigh, his voice soft and gentle. "To be honest, I am a bit scared. Maybe we shouldn't do this." Looking at him with frustration, I couldn't believe what he was suggesting. "Running away at the last moment isn't your style." I continued to tease him through text. Lawson gazed at me intently, his eyes as warm and tender as a gentle spring breeze. "Style means nothing in front of the person you cherish." His fingers twirled through my hair, his deep, mellow voice caressing my heart lightly, sending tingles through me. His confession was sudden but not out of place. It felt as if everything naturally fell into place. I didn't say much, just silently typed. "Wait for me." After the injection, I slept heavily for 3 days. And when I awoke, Lawson was there by my side. After regaining my human form, I found it hard to adjust and clung to Lawson constantly, feeling secure only when I was near his comforting presence. Over the years, Lawson aged, his handsome features becoming more serious, while I, having spent years as a zombie, retained my youthful appearance. Walking together, the age difference between us was stark. One day, Lawson suddenly brought me a gift, insisting that I wait until the evening to open it, which piqued my curiosity. When evening finally arrived and I began to unwrap the gift, Lawson watched me with a mischievous grin that oddly made my heart race. With anticipation, I opened the gift box, only to be stunned. Inside was a red dress, the very same sexy nightgown I wore when we first met. My mind exploded, sending a blush across my cheeks. "Baby, go put it on, will you?" Lawson's voice, laced with teasing charm, left me disoriented but compliant. As I slipped into the dress, he, with eyes glinting, began to undress me, his voice husky. "Baby, it's time to get serious." In the heat of the moment, I heard Lawson's breathy whisper in my ear, "Baby, you need to grow up fast, otherwise, I feel like I'm taking advantage of a child." At that point, I was beyond words, letting him have his way. Then I heard him say, "Baby, let's get married." Nuclear apocalypse struck, mutating fish and turning them into monstrous sea creatures that came ashore to attack humans. During our escape, my boyfriend and his so-called sister pushed me out to fend for myself, leaving me to be torn apart and devoured by the sea monsters. After my rebirth, I became the king of a multi-tentacled octopus species, with a clear sense of who was to blame. I led my octopus minions to devour my boyfriend and his sister alive. Then, I drove the sea monsters back to their lunar realm, dealing with the instigator of this chaos, charge and flatten this place. The day the nuclear apocalypse erupted, everyone was caught off guard. Due to the polluted seawater, fish mutated, sprouting limbs, the severely infected marine creatures transformed into monstrous beings, octopuses with 96 legs, shark men covered in eyes, jellyfish monsters with 6 heads, and more. These sea monsters, along with the mutated fish, came ashore to bite and consume humans, quickly overrunning the cities. People panicked and fled for their lives. During our escape, my boyfriend insisted on bringing his sister, with lives at stake. I didn't have time to think too much, but I never imagined that when we were about to be caught by the fish, my boyfriend and his sister would team up against me, each shoving me, pushing me into the mass of fish to divert their attention. Struggling amongst the fish, I saw them holding hands, their mockery echoing in my ears. "Ha, sister, I'm not just his sister by name, but also his beloved. For me and Harper, it's a sacrifice that had to be made, Timothy." With that, my boyfriend and his sister disappeared from my sight. Meanwhile, I was being torn apart and devoured by the fish and sea monsters, the pain excruciating as my flesh was ripped apart. I never imagined I would die so miserably. This wasn't just a natural disaster, it was also a man-made one. Those despicable traitors. Not only did they cheat behind my back, but they also used me as a scapegoat to save themselves. I was so full of hatred. If there is a next life, I want them to experience the agony of being torn and devoured, and to repay their debts with their blood. As I seethed in endless hatred, my consciousness blurred, and I was completely consumed by the fish. A flash of white light passed, and I felt a cool, slippery sensation on my body. When I opened my eyes, I found myself floating in the sea. Despite my confusion about why I was in the sea, I couldn't help but feel a surge of joy. I didn't die and was reborn. Just as I was about to swim to shore to check things out, I noticed something odd about my body. Why do I have so many arms? 2, 3, good heavens, a full 96 tentacles. Wait, tentacles, where are my hands and feet? Panicking and astonished, I swam to the shore and looked into the sea. Almost fainting from the shock, I had become an octopus. Good news, I was reborn. Bad news. I was reborn as an octopus, and a mutated, multi-tentacled one at that. As soon as I reached the shore, I realized I could shift between my human and octopus forms freely. That seemed pretty cool. Just then, I noticed the dark, eerie green sea surface bubbling up, and many small octopuses emerged. The octopuses, waving their tentacles, gathered around me. Great King, wait for us, Great King. The sea has been severely polluted by nuclear waste, and we are homeless. This is all because of the selfish humans who destroyed our home. We can't let them get away with it. Hey, Great King, how did you turn into a human? Could it be to blend in with the humans for a better attack on land? Me, is there a chance I was originally human? Great King, we swear to follow you to the end, to attack the land, occupy the cities, and make the humans pay the price they deserve. I was initially stunned. Octopuses talking, but considering I was an octopus, it wasn't that surprising anymore. From the small octopus's conversation, I learned that I had been reborn into the body of a mutated, multi-tentacled octopus king, and they planned to attack land and destroy humanity in 3 days. In recent years, the discharge of nuclear wastewater had caused severe ocean pollution, affecting many marine creatures. The marine creatures were filled with resentment, shouting about destroying the land and making humanity pay the price. I couldn't help but mutter to myself, it's all Moon Country's fault. They discharged the nuclear wastewater. Why should all of humanity foot the bill for their actions? Why should we, the innocent, suffer? I began to brainwash the octopuses. Only a small portion of people are selfish. You can't generalize everyone like that. Okay, even if you seek revenge, you must target the main culprits, not the innocents. Okay. Fortunately, these octopuses weren't fully intelligent yet. Much like young children, easily influenced, agreeing with whatever I said, I nodded, pleased. The young octopuses were teachable. What should we do next? Oh King, I don't want to go back to that stinky sea. Seeing the sea surface bubbling with trash and emitting a foul stench, I almost threw up. I understand. I don't want to go to the sea either, but the little octopus's words reminded me, I still had a score to settle. My gruesome death was all because of my boyfriend Victor and his so-called sister Harper. Having been reborn, I naturally wouldn't let this deceitful pair off easily. The nuclear apocalypse was just days away. I couldn't let them die too easily. I wanted them to suffer and beg before dying in front of me. I smirked. Next, let's go to the city and tear apart that scumbag and that wretched woman. Oh King, what are scumbag and wretched woman? Tasty things. Hearing it was something delicious. The octopuses drooled madly, their tentacles flailing wildly. Taking advantage of the night, I quietly led my subordinates through the drainage pipes into the home I shared with Victor. Emerging from the toilet and transforming into human form, I heard the squeak noises from the bedroom. Faintly hearing Harper and Victor's voices, I felt nauseous. They had been messing around together for a while, and their familiarity hinted it wasn't their first time. I bet the moment I wasn't home, they were getting cozy here. Thinking back, I had been generous to Victor. He was short of money to buy a house, and I helped him out. I felt sorry for him commuting on the subway, so I gave him the car I had saved up to buy for myself. I did all this not just because I loved him, but because I trusted him. So when he said Harper was his foster sister, I cared for her too, out of love for him. She liked my makeup, and I always generously gifted it to her. When she was sick, I was the one who regularly brought her meals on Victor's behalf. To think that these two ingrates not only betrayed me but also cold-heartedly watched as I was torn apart by monsters. They used me as a shield and mocked me mercilessly as they left hand in hand. Thinking that in my previous life this despicable pair might have survived made my blood boil. Why should I die in agony while they live freely? My fists tightened unconsciously. The noise inside continued. I couldn't stand it anymore, anger driving me to kick the door open. true to the king of octopuses. My strength was formidable. Just as I entered, I saw two familiar figures embracing each other, their pleasant time interrupted. Victor looked impatient. Who's there? Before he could curse. The words stuck in his throat. Timothy, Timothy, what are you doing here? And Harper looked at me as if she'd seen a ghost. I smirked coldly. This is also my house. Why can't I be here? Then, Harper saw the octopuses on the floor and screamed, "Ah, octopuses, so many octopuses. Timothy, have you gone mad bringing all these here?" Victor, seeing the octopuses on the floor, also showed a look of disgust. "Timothy, what are you doing? These things are disgusting." I watched them clutching the sheets to cover themselves, and scoffed, "Disgusting," sneaking around behind my back, having a thrill. Victor stepped forward, trying to grab my hand, attempting to explain something. "Timothy, I swung my arm and delivered a resounding slap. Smack. The sound was crisp and loud. The sound of a powerful slap was unmistakable. Victor's cheek visibly swelled up red. "No need to explain. You don't deserve to," he was told. Seeing Victor struck, Harper moved beside him. Her voice tender and soft. "Timothy, how could you hit Victor? Victor is not at fault. It's you. You're just too dull." And that's why Victor turned to me. "Besides, we were only pursuing true love. Timothy, I'm not the other woman. The one who isn't loved is the other woman, so that makes you the third wheel." Before Harper could finish, a small octopus, at my command, silenced her. I cleared my ears, clicking my tongue. So noisy. Harper was terrified, whimpering continuously. Victor, distressed by Harper's plight, couldn't stand it and fiercely shouted at me, "Timothy, what have you done to Harper? Get that octopus off her now." As Victor frantically tried to remove it, he didn't realize that the more he pulled, the tighter the octopus clung. Harper's face turned a sickly purple, tears welling up from her discomfort. I was quite pleased with this, chuckling. I didn't do much, just gave her a little punishment for her foul mouth. Don't bother trying to help. These are my minions. They won't back down without my command. Victor was stunned. "Minions? Timothy, what are you talking about? You're human. How can an octopus be your minion? Why can't I be an octopus?" Then, after saying this, I revealed a sinister smile and transformed into an octopus right before their eyes. "Ah, a monster. You are a monster." Woo, terrified, Victor forgot all about Harper and scrambled to flee. But I extended a tentacle, snaking around him with agile ease, and forcefully dragged him back. I then hung Harper and Victor up with my tentacles, restraining them, and turned to address the small octopuses. "Feast, my little ones," already drooling at the scent of flesh. The small octopuses, now permitted, flung their many legs towards Victor and Harper. Their suckers clung tightly to Victor and Harper, who couldn't shake them off. "Timothy, you're mad. Let us go." Though Victor still had the strength to shout, it wouldn't last long. The small octopuses opened their large mouths, revealing rows of sharp white teeth, and viciously tore chunks of flesh from Victor and Harper. Blood splattered, and the octopuses smeared their mouths with it. The fresh blood excited them even more. Their eyes reddened, emitting a bloodthirsty glow. They continued to bite, unable to stop themselves. "Great King, you didn't lie to us. This indeed is delicious," they said. Some octopuses, fond of gnawing at the scalp, climbed onto Harper's head. They not only pulled her hair but also ripped off large pieces of scalp, chewing loudly, perhaps tiring of holding her. The small octopus let go of Harper's mouth, allowing her to breathe fresh air again. Victor and Harper screamed in agony, initially loud but soon fainting from the pain, too weak to scream. Every time they passed out, I would use extra tentacles to slap them awake, forcing them to endure another round of torment. Before long, they were tortured beyond recognition. With eyes full of terror, Victor cried and begged me for mercy. "Timothy, Timothy, I was wrong. Let me explain. I didn't mean to cheat. It was all her. Harper deliberately seduced me." Harper, hearing this, was not pleased either. The blame game began in earnest. "You're the one who said Timothy was too boring. That's why you came to me not long after you two got together. You often brought me to your house to spice things up." Ugh, disgusting. They really are two selfish people. Their voices are so loud, I can't stand to hear them argue anymore. It would be bad if the neighbors got disturbed. I let two little octopuses crawl up and chew their mouths to shreds. They were in so much pain they couldn't speak, only managing to whimper in protest. It became much quieter. As expected, I chuckled. Ha ha, I don't care who's right or wrong between you two. I just want your lives in exchange. To repay the life you owed me in our past lives. Whimper, whimper, whimper. Though they could only whimper, I could still understand the fluctuating tones of Victor's intended words. You're breaking the law. I tilted my octopus head, squinting and chuckling. Is that so? But I'm an octopus. Octopuses don't break laws. I didn't let the little octopuses eat them right away. After all, dying too quickly would be too kind for them. I want to keep them, to torment them slowly. By then, Victor Harper had already passed out from pain. And I threw them into the bathroom and locked it up. Afterward, I and my octopus subordinate settled down here successfully, not just because the seawater was too polluted to stay in, but also because the city was about to welcome a large influx of sea monsters. The next day, I went to the bathroom first thing in the morning to continue the new round of torture on Harper and Victor. But when I got there, I only saw Harper. Victor was missing. I angrily slapped the two octopus guards who were sound asleep by the door. Hey, wake up, how is one person missing? The two sleepy octopuses opened their eyes. Huh, my lord, hasn't he always been here? Yes, their scent has been here all along. Only then did I notice the pool of blood and flesh by the door. Since becoming the Octopus King, my sense of smell has become much sharper. And I knew immediately it was Victor's flesh and blood. No wonder the octopus guards didn't notice Victor had escaped. It was because of this trick. I checked the bathroom. It was quite high. It would be difficult for one person to escape alone. They would need another person to act as a ladder. So, Victor's escape must have involved Harper's help. I kicked Harper, who was in a pitiful state on the floor, and said coldly, "You helped Victor escape, didn't you?" Harper's eyes gleamed fiercely. And a crazed smile spread across his face. The smile tore open his healing wounds, causing them to bleed again. "Yes, it was me. What can you do about it, Timothy? Victor said he would definitely come back to save me. When he comes back, it will be your end. We won't let you off," Harper said, his face growing more twisted. "We'll also cut off your flesh to feed the fish, then tear you into pieces. Wait for your death, Timothy." I kept a cold smile. "Are you sure he'll come back to save you? Victor is always selfish. Didn't he leave you alone in the haunted house because he was scared? It was the staff who had to go in and bring you out." Harper looked puzzled. "How do you know about that?" Surprised, "That man told me the story as a joke that very night." I found it somewhat amusing that Harper was still in the dark, and earlier, you were both quick to blame each other. "Do you think a man like that is reliable?" Harper's face grew paler, his head shaking like a rattle, desperately comforting himself. "No, you're lying. Victor promised he would come to save me. He promised personally." I stepped closer to Harper, emphasizing each word. "The least valuable thing is a man's promise. Give up, he's not coming back." Harper's face turned ashen. Seeing Harper's provoked expression was profoundly satisfying. To kill a person is to aim for the heart. Isn't that what they did last time? They provoked me before they died, not letting me die in peace. Now, I wanted Harper to taste the pain of a heart being torn apart, dying in agony. This was what she deserved. Harper hesitated for a moment but still shook her head stubbornly, her voice firm. "No, Victor will come. He definitely won't abandon me." "Is that so?" I sneered, patting the little octopus beside me. "Go on, bite her." The little octopus, already greedy, was thrilled upon receiving my command. It lunged at Harper, drooling, and viciously bit into her with its dense, sharp teeth. "Ah!" Harper screamed in pain. The little octopus was relentless, nibbling on her chin and face, quickly disfiguring her. Harper's screams were music to my ears, and I couldn't help but mock her. "Look at you now. If Victor really cared, he would have come to save you by now. His absence only means one thing. He's not coming back, killing not just the body, but the spirit too." Harper was driven to madness. Her eyes filled with hatred as she looked at me. "Timothy, you wretch, you will not die a good death. Is that so? I only know that you're about to die, even at death's door." Harper still tried to threaten me. Little did she know, I had been reborn, and even less did she know that I had returned to seek vengeance on them. Now that Victor had fled, I could only torment Harper, since she was also a murderer. I had intended to torture her slowly, but her mouth was just too foul for my liking. And I didn't appreciate it. Plus, she was too noisy, causing me pain. To ensure she wouldn't bother me anymore, I gave a slight smile to the little octopus on Harper and whispered, "Enjoy your meal today, no need to hold back." As soon as I spoke, the previously restrained octopuses hastened their feeding, afraid they wouldn't get enough. Sizzle, sizzle, Timothy, you're not human, you beast, stop biting me. She was right, I was half human, half beast. The sound of tearing flesh and Harper's wails intertwined in the air, creating a delightful duet. Every now and then, the thick scent of iron invigorated me. However, Harper was too weak. Within an hour, the octopuses had devoured her completely, leaving no bones behind. Having dealt with Harper, I felt a bit better. The feeling of personally torturing my enemy to death was exhilarating. Unfortunately, one got away, but I couldn't let him go that easily. Harper was despicable, but Victor, who betrayed and trampled on my sincerity, was even worse. Thus, by day I took human form to search for Victor, allowing my octopus legion to rest and gather strength at home. At night, I would send the octopus legion to track Victor's whereabouts while I rested comfortably. After several days, there was still no sign of Victor. Victor was still at large, but the sea monsters arrived first. The day the sea monsters arrived, the whole city was in turmoil. People screamed in terror, scrambling in all directions. I was awoken by their screams. Upon waking, I saw the streets filled with all sorts of bizarre sea creatures. There were shark people covered in eyes, giant crabs taller than buildings, sea serpents with 8 heads and 16 tails sharing one body, and jellyfish monsters with 6 heads and sharp teeth. They not only abducted passers-by but also wantonly destroyed buildings. They seemed determined to destroy this city and, eventually, the entire country. As a citizen, I couldn't just stand by and let them run wild. I smirked, transformed into my octopus form, and summoned my legion. It's time for dinner, and today it's a seafood buffet. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. Since their taste of flesh a few days ago, the little octopuses had been craving more. They pointed at the crowd on the street, looking up at me eagerly. "Great king, there are so many scoundrels and wretches down there. Can I eat them all?" I looked. Scoundrels and wretches. Those were innocent people. Angered, I slapped each octopus with a tentacle. I had plenty to spare. I sternly taught them, "These are not scoundrels or wretches. You can't eat them. They are innocent humans. Only those who have done evil are scoundrels and wretches." Seeing the confused look in the octopus's eyes, I knew they didn't understand, so I simplified it. In short, you can only eat someone if I say it's okay. If I didn't say so, not only can you not harm them, but you must also protect them. Do you understand? I asked. The octopuses nodded vigorously. "We understand, Your Majesty." At that moment, several octopuses' stomachs began to rumble. "Your Majesty, we are hungry. If we can't eat humans, can we at least have some seafood buffet?" they pleaded. I nodded in agreement. "Of course, if you see any seafood bullying humans, feel free to bite them. As for the rest, as long as they don't bother us, we won't bother them." After giving these simple instructions to the Octopus Legion, I led them grandly onto the streets. We happened upon a giant shark man trying to stuff a crying child into his mouth. I immediately lashed out with my 96 tentacles, twisting and creeping ominously. My tentacles, flexible as whips, snapped fiercely against the shark man's body. He was whipped so severely that his skin split open, blurring flesh and blood. The pain contorted his face grotesquely, and he threw the child aside, then charged towards me. I quickly wove some of my spare tentacles into a net, catching the falling child securely. "Octopus King, you dare to spoil my plans," the shark man roared as he lunged at me with his gaping maw. "You don't even spare children, you beast," I retorted. I twisted several of my tentacles into a thick braid, heavy as a sledgehammer, and swung it at the back of the shark man's head. The blow cracked his skull open, splattering brain matter, and he died instantly. The child's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Are you Octopus Hero? Thank you for saving me." Just then, the child's parents arrived. The mother, terrified, clasped her child to her chest to comfort him. The father, however, was furious. He suddenly pulled out a kitchen knife and began chopping off several of my tentacles. As he chopped, he cursed, "You monsters, daring to harm my son, I'll kill you." Although my octopus tentacles can regenerate, the pain of being chopped was very real and intense, with more nerves than humans. My pain was tenfold greater. The chopping of my tentacles was as painful as enduring several childbirths. Was this man blind, attacking the one who saved his child instead of the real threat? Wasn't this a classic case of biting the hand that feeds? The child tried to stop his father while crying, but his mother pulled him back. The father kept chopping. Perhaps thinking I was an easy target, not as fierce as other monsters, so he vented all his anger on me. Enraged, I summoned the Octopus Legion and ordered them to bite off the man's leg. Minions, bite off his leg. He chopped off so many of my tentacles, and I only disabled one of his legs. I was indeed too kind. The Octopus Legion swarmed over, and in a blink, the man's leg was gone. I sneered. Serves him right. If it weren't for the child's sake, it wouldn't have just been a leg. After dealing with the ungrateful wretch, I led the Octopus Legion to rescue other trapped people. Most were grateful, even though I was just an octopus. Of course, there were still those who repaid kindness with hostility. As for their fate, just look at the faces of my delighted Octopus Legion. Not only did the Octopus Legion eat the scum, but they also feasted on harmful sea monsters. The sea monsters had come killing from the sea, and I led the Octopus Legion eating our way back. The sea monsters looked at us as if we were oddities. So greedy, don't you value your lives? Stay back, don't come any closer. Once you've eaten them, you can't eat us anymore. As we advanced, they retreated, clearly fearful. They dared not approach us lightly. It seems they were terrified by our scene of indiscriminate eating. One of the jellyfish, bold enough to step forward despite the danger and with righteous indignation, accused us. Not only do you harm your own kind, but you also protect humans. How absurd. Humans have destroyed the environment, ruined our homes, and yet you octopuses protect them. You traitors, you lapdogs of humanity. Upon hearing this, other monsters joined in the chorus. Humans who destroy the marine environment deserve to die. The octopus race is a traitor to the ocean. They deserve to die too. Me. Is it possible that I was originally a human? And clearly, it was the lunar country that did this. Why not seek out the real culprits instead of implicating innocent people? When I was brainwashing the octopuses, I realized that these marine monsters might not be very intelligent. If I could persuade them, maybe they could be of use to me. With this in mind, I began to brainwash the marine monsters. We are neither traitors nor lackeys. There's a specific debtor for every debt. It was clearly the lunar people who discharged the nuclear wastewater. If you seek revenge, you should target the lunar people. Why involve the people of Hua country? Isn't it said that lunar country is cunning? By discharging nuclear wastewater into the ocean, they shift the risk and drag everyone down with them. Meanwhile, they invisibly escape any responsibility. These marine monsters emerged out of nowhere, and they aren't very clear about the specific source, even if it came from the lunar country. Their intelligence isn't enough to remember it. I made a compelling argument, and many marine monsters were convinced by my reasoning. At that moment, a voice suddenly erupted among the crowd of monsters. Don't be deceived by this octopus. She's undermining our resolve. What Hua and lunar countries? It's just an excuse. The ocean has been polluted by humans, and all humans must die, especially this octopus. It's a traitor, and it must die. What kind of twisted logic is this? And why does this voice sound so familiar? I was so angry that I looked directly towards the source of the voice. To my shock, it wasn't anyone else but Victor. No, more accurately, it was Victor with a human head and a snake's body, grotesquely disgusting. Good grief, he had merged directly with the marine monsters, just to seek revenge on me. He offered his body to the marine monsters. I knew it. The constant calling of traitor must have been taught by Victor. Seeing my silent demeanor, Victor laughed loudly. Timothy, didn't expect this. Did you? Not just you have supernatural abilities, now I have them too. After escaping, I met these marine monsters. To gain the power to seek revenge on you, I willingly offered my body to them, and to prevent them from getting lost, I specifically led them here. You're utterly deranged. Just to seek revenge on me, you lead these monsters to harm your fellow countrymen, completely disregarding the lives of the people of Hua country. Truly selfish and self-serving. This fits Victor's character perfectly, a selfish ghost. As Victor said this, more and more stubborn elements supported Victor, believing that I was undermining their resolve. Then, they directly charged at innocent bystanders, attempting to massacre them. Just as I was about to rush over, Victor, controlling the dozens of snakes below his neck, wrapped them around me. Timothy, your opponent is me. The strength of the multi-legged octopus king is not to be underestimated. I waved my tentacles wildly, and the inertia was enough to tear Victor's snakes apart. With one pull, the snakes were shredded. You're not worthy. Seeing that the situation was unfavorable, Victor controlled the remaining 2 snakes and prepared to flee. I directly used my 500-kilogram body to crush him. With a squelch, Victor was flattened into a meat patty. As for the other marine monsters, there was no need for me to act, as the octopus legions had already gone up to tear them apart. After dealing with these stubborn elements, I looked at the marine monsters with a fierce expression. Anyone who dares to harm the people of Hua country will end up like this. After such a demonstration, the marine monsters dared not act rashly anymore. They all shook their heads. I had calmed down quite a bit. At that moment, I caught a glimpse of a figure resembling Victor in the distance. Hadn't I personally killed Victor, thinking it might have just been a trick of the eye, I didn't dwell on it. Just then, a monster timidly spoke up. So, what about the Moon Country? Is this what happens to those who harm the people of Moon Country? If we can't harm the people from our own nation, these sea monsters still need an outlet for their frustrations. I smiled. Of course not. I don't just approve. I strongly encourage it. Let's do this. Since you're unfamiliar with the way, I'll lead you in an assault on Moon Country. Hearing this, the sea monsters found the idea feasible and were quickly swayed by my suggestion. Let's go to Moon Country. Let's flatten Moon Country. 7. And so, I led the sea monsters all the way to Moon Country. Moon Country is an island nation, small in size but big on causing trouble. The recent extensive marine pollution was their doing, insisting on dumping nuclear wastewater into the sea despite warnings, leading to numerous mutations in marine life. We had just landed when we saw the wastewater treatment plant. It was clanging away, discharging foul-smelling, yellow-black water. As soon as this water hit the sea, the ocean changed color and emitted a horrible stench. The sea monsters, who had harbored doubts about me, were now fully convinced upon witnessing this scene and frowned deeply. This stench is exactly like the one in the sea. Ugh. I pointed at the treatment plant actively discharging wastewater and said, "See, Moon Country is the root cause of all this." The sea monsters, reminded of their destroyed homes and deceased kin, were filled with rage and began to grow restless. I directed these angry sea monsters, charge and flatten this place. In my past life, I was killed by a mutated sea monster caused by this very nuclear pollution. Now, it was time for the culprits to taste what it's like to be torn apart by monsters. At my command, the sea monsters swarmed the treatment plant and began a massacre. A horseshoe crab crushed the facility underfoot. Many Moon Country residents were trampled to death, while others managed to escape. The shark men devoured them one by one as a snack. The remaining Moon Country residents, their faces filled with terror, screamed, "Monsters, monsters!" I found it somewhat amusing and transformed into human form to confront them. "Aren't these the very monsters you created? There are many ways to treat wastewater. Why did you choose to dump it in the sea?" Having died because of this in a previous life, I was understandably agitated. It was all the king's idea. He said it was the cheapest way. Yes, it's not only cheap but also easy. We get the same money for the least effort. In the end, they're just a bunch of selfish ghosts. I didn't stop the sea monster's frenzy, letting the angry creatures bite these people to death. Though the king was the main culprit, these people were accomplices and not innocent. After dealing with these sea monsters, I led them on a quest for revenge against the king, but the journey to find the king was not without its complications. 8. On our way to find the king, we saw 2 groups of people arguing. The sea monsters, already furious, were about to attack indiscriminately when I stopped them, urging them to assess the situation first. If we keep dumping nuclear wastewater like this, we're bound to face retribution. If this pollution continues, the end is near. The speakers were Moon Country residents holding flags, apparently opposing the nuclear wastewater. As they spoke, the opposing group immediately rushed over and started beating and cursing them. "Damn it, stop talking nonsense about retribution. This is a wise decision by the king." Yeah, if it weren't for the king's decision to dump the nuclear waste, we'd be the ones dying. "Keep causing trouble, and I'll break your arms and legs." This group clearly supported the wastewater dumping. The opposing faction was beaten until they howled in pain, their faces bruised. The sea monsters' anger flared up, and when I let them attack, I told them to be mindful of the opposing faction. Who were the good guys? The sea monsters nodded and charged forward, biting off the hands of the supporters as they raised their fists again. Ah, my hand, you're looking for death. Before they could finish, the heads of the supporters were also bitten off. Then, they were mercilessly torn apart by the furious sea monsters, becoming their food. The scene was quite bloody. The dissenters were saved, though they were also frightened. They expressed their gratitude and apologies to the sea monsters. Thank you for saving us, we're really sorry. If it weren't for us, you wouldn't have ended up like this. We're sorry, yes, if we had resisted more at that time, perhaps this wouldn't have happened. Despite their anger, the sea monsters softened their hearts in the face of these well-meaning words. They whimpered and moaned to the moon people, and I translated for them on the spot. They say it's not your fault, you don't have to blame yourselves. But they definitely won't let the Moon Kingdom's king off the hook. The dissenters had long been fed up with their king but had always been too afraid to speak out. Now, hearing our intention to deal with the Moon Kingdom's king, they eagerly pointed us in the right direction. After waving goodbye to them, we set off towards the capital. After several days of travel, we arrived at the capital smoothly, but something felt off to me. Isn't it said that the capital's defenses are supposed to be strict? Why were there no guards stopping us along the way? It was all too easy. I kept my guard up, leaving some of the smaller octopi outside while we entered the capital. Just as we arrived, we encountered the king giving a public speech. This timing was too perfect, almost suspiciously so. The Moon Kingdom's king, a bald, short, and chubby man, was passionately speaking into a microphone taller than him. Regarding the discharge of nuclear wastewater, I think others are making a big fuss over nothing. It's just a bit of nuclear wastewater. It won't kill anyone, nor will it affect the seafood. Claims that it will contaminate the water sources and seafood are malicious rumors. Don't believe in rumors, don't spread rumors. His words infuriated the sea monsters, and I could hear them grinding their teeth. Then, the king added, even if something does happen, it will flow to other countries. We're not the only victims, so what's there to worry about? Many of the moon people, brainwashed, found his argument reasonable. I, on the other hand, was seething with anger, my fists clenched tight. This damned, reasonable king was deliberately dragging our nearest neighbor, Huagua, into this mess. The sea monsters were already restless, roaring as they charged forward, ready to kill the king. Fatso, your life ends here. You destroyed our home, I want your life. At that moment, I realized what had felt wrong earlier. The king was speaking, but there were no guards around him. This had to be a trap. Come back, it's a trap. I shouted to warn them, but it was too late. The onlookers around us suddenly tore off their disguises, revealing guard uniforms underneath and aiming guns at us, surrounding us. Don't move. There were no real spectators. These onlookers were guards in disguise. From the moment we entered the capital, we had been led into a trap. Damn. We were careless. Some of the sea monsters, blinded by anger and convinced that humans were no match for them, charged forward. They were mutated sea creatures with seemingly indestructible bodies. How could they be harmed? Today you must die. However, before they could reach the king, gunfire erupted, and several of the sea monsters were hit, instantly dissolving into a foul-smelling yellow liquid. The king on the stage laughed heartily, taking pleasure in the disaster. I told you to stay still. Why didn't you listen? These aren't ordinary bullets. They're specially designed to dissolve you sea monsters into water upon contact. Ha 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 ha. And you thought you could kill me? How ridiculous. What? They had even developed specific weaponry against them. This king really came prepared. This was indeed a trap. As I stood there, shocked, processing this information, a familiar voice came from behind the king. Ha ha ha, Timothy, bet you didn't see this coming. That voice was, before I could think further, a figure, all too familiar, appeared before me. It was Victor, a man who was supposed to be long dead. At that moment, he was standing in front of me, dressed in the exquisite attire of the Moon Kingdom. You're not dead, that's impossible. I killed Victor with my own hands. I made sure he was dead, but now, why is there another Victor here? Victor seemed to enjoy seeing my shocked and angry expression. The more I reacted, the happier he became. With a smug look, Victor's voice carried a hint of triumph. Of course I'm not dead, because it was only half of my clone that died. Clone, ha ha ha, you're about to die anyway, so I'm not afraid to tell you, yes, it was just my clone, and my ability to clone myself. I owe it to your octopus. If it hadn't bitten me, I wouldn't have mutated. From Victor's words, I learned the true story. That day, after Victor escaped from the restroom, he discovered he could clone himself due to a mutation. Though he could only do it once, so, Victor sent one of his clones to deal with the sea monsters, making a pact to attack China and seek revenge on me. Victor was cautious, he kept his other half at a distance, watching everything unfold, so I wasn't seeing things. It was Victor's other half clone I saw, after that half was destroyed, and hearing that we were planning an attack on the Moon Nation. The other half sensed something was wrong and immediately fled to the Moon Nation to inform the king. At first, the king didn't believe him, but after the sewage plant incident and the support faction affair, he was convinced of Victor's words. They even struck a deal. Victor promised to reveal our weaknesses to help the king avert disaster, while the king offered to make him a national advisor, promising wealth and honor. This scheme was Victor's idea. Towards the end, Victor's face twisted into madness. Timothy, oh Timothy, you were too careless, unfortunately. You won't have a future because you're about to be killed, and I will have immense wealth, more money than I can spend. Ha 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 ha. Victor suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood mid-laughter. Looking down, a dagger had pierced through his chest, blood gushing out, and the person who stabbed him was the king. The king, you. Victor's face was filled with disbelief. Before he could finish his sentence, the king coldly pulled out the dagger, smiling sinisterly. Ha! You think you deserve such riches? I kept you around because you were useful. Now that we've developed the weapon and captured the people, there's no reason to keep you. After all, you're a monster just like them, a lingering threat that must be eradicated. You deceived me. With a thud, Victor fell to the ground, dead, along with a row of guards surrounding us. Now it was the king's turn to be stunned, jumping with fury. What's going on? Why have you fallen too? I raised my hand. And the little octopuses clinging to the guards began to eat voraciously. Seeing this, the sea monsters joined the fray. The guards' screams of agony and the sounds of flesh being torn were music to my ears. I explained with a smile, I sensed something was off long ago, so I left a batch of little octopuses here before we entered. While you were babbling earlier, I already summoned them, and when you let your guard down, I subdued all your guards. But before I deal with you, I still have some unfinished business with Victor. After that, I transformed into the Octopus King, my tentacles creeping towards the injured but still alive Victor. Torturing him like this was indeed more interesting. I used my tentacles to first pull off his legs, then his arms, watching him desperately wriggling on the ground, spitting blood and foam. But that wasn't enough. My 96 tentacles surged towards Victor, tearing him apart like a drawn and quartered horse. Blood sprayed. Intestines and organs flew everywhere, with Victor's large intestine landing directly on the king's face, forcing him to swallow a mouthful of it. I had fed the shredded pieces of meat to the little octopuses. Then, with a sinister smile, I approached the king. In my past life, I was destined to die, and apart from Victor and Harper, the Moon Kingdom's king was indirectly a murderer too. If it weren't for his insistence on discharging nuclear wastewater, marine life wouldn't have mutated. And I wouldn't have been bitten to death by these mutated creatures. He had to pay for his actions. After witnessing how I tore Victor apart with my own hands, uncontrollable fear was evident on the king's face. He kept retreating, emitting a foul smell. He was so scared he wet himself. You should have foreseen this day when you decided to dump nuclear waste. As I extended my tentacle towards him, the king seized the opportunity to grab a gun from a fallen guard and sprayed bullets at me. Die. You monsters, die. After a barrage of bullets, the king realized I was unharmed, his face filled with even greater fear. How are you still alive? This gun was designed for sea monsters. The king couldn't understand it. It had worked before. I laughed eerily and spoke softly, because I'm not just any sea monster. After that, I wrapped the terrified king in my tentacles. The marine monsters and the octopus legion had just devoured the guards. Seeing the king in my grasp sparked uncontrollable rage in their eyes, eager to tear him into pieces. Wouldn't that be letting him off too easily? Let's torment him a bit more before letting you feast, I said. My words still held great influence among the sea monsters. Together with them, I brought the king to the most polluted part of the ocean, then we forced his head underwater. Gurgle, gurgle, you said drinking it wouldn't kill anyone, right? Have more then, no, gurgle gurgle, you, cough cough. Ignoring the king's curses and screams, we forcibly filled his stomach with water. As his belly was about to burst, we pulled out mutated dead fish and shrimp from the sea and forced them into his mouth. He vomited several times during the process, of course. We didn't let him have his way, stepping on him and forcing him to swallow his vomit. Please, let me go. The king, unable to endure the torture any longer, knelt and begged for mercy. We remained unmoved. Let him off. Did he think of letting us off when he dumped the nuclear wastewater? He spared neither the marine life nor the innocent people of other nations. As Timothy, a citizen of Hua country, I couldn't let him go. As the king of octopuses, neither could I, eventually. The king died from our relentless torture, and the sea monsters, to vent their anger, dismembered his body. They didn't consume him, finding it too repulsive, and instead, they threw his remains into the wilderness as a warning for the people of the Moon Kingdom. The news of the king's disappearance quickly spread throughout the Moon Kingdom, shocking the citizens. Later, a fisherman accidentally discovered the king's remains, coupled with sightings of sea monsters devouring people. They concluded it was the Moon Kingdom's karmic retribution. Soon after, a new king ascended the throne. Seeing his predecessor's fate, he dared not repeat the same mistakes. He immediately ordered a halt to the discharge of nuclear wastewater and shut down all sewage treatment plants. He also publicly apologized to the world and the countless dead marine creatures, kneeling in repentance. He emptied the national treasury to rectify the nuclear pollution. Eventually, the pollution was addressed. But the Moon Kingdom's treasury was drained, leading to an economic downfall and the country's decline. Soon, the Moon Kingdom vanished from the world stage. After a long period of recovery, this maritime area was free of sea monsters, and marine life found a new sanctuary, and I could no longer transform into the king of octopuses, nor communicate with these marine creatures and little octopuses. It feels quite strange. Honestly, after bidding them farewell, I returned to Hua country. Free from scoundrels and mean-spirited people, I began living my own happy life, until one day, I heard the call of the marine creatures again.